Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Sports Talk. This is the NFL Draft Recap episode. I am joined by two very knowledgeable voices when it comes to analyzing prospects, looking at team needs, and even holding their own draft called the 8th Annual Mockapalooza. Of course, coming back to the show is a long-time guest of Midnight Sports today, Bill Carroll. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Consensus Draft Services, a senior writer for Nuts and Bolts Sports. He is a special contributor to Around the Block Sports and their research and just spread
Black
the word
history.
about. Sorry, what was that?
Black history.
Yeah, I was about to say Black history. If you want to learn more about Bill's knowledge and just about the pioneers, the African American pioneers in particular in football, you can check out our video with me and Bill. We talked a lot of shop that day. He's also a featured blogger for Zenny62 Media, and you can find him on Twitter at 11Bravo138. Welcome back to the show, Bill Carroll.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yes, you have been one of the most knowledgeable and interesting voices, and he gave us a true education, not only in our one-on-one, but in our pre-draft episode. But of course, joining him is another knowledgeable voice, Greg Rector.
Yes. Absolutely. And the crowd goes wild.
Exactly. He is a writer for Nuts and Bolts Sports and for Cowboys Corner. He is a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. I know that's going to make some of the people viewing him love him, and the other half hate him for his allegiance.
Half? I'm lucky to get 5% support. Come on.
I was trying to be generous, but that is true. Of course, Greg has his own podcast, Greg's Grapes. You can check that out, and you can follow him on Twitter at Greg's Cowboys. Welcome to the show, Greg Rector. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brock.
Of course. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. A lot of things happened over the weekend in terms of prospects getting drafted, prospects falling to later rounds, and of course, prospects falling completely out of the draft. But let's talk about first the winners of the draft. Bill, who do you have as your winners of the 2022 NFL draft?
And I don't really give a quote unquote grade, but I look at what teams took the best advantage of the opportunities that presented themselves to them. And it's hard to argue with what the Jets did. The Jets took a team that needed everything except a young quarterback and took everything except a young quarterback. So well done. They looked at their needs, particularly on defense, and said, oh, it's a defensive draft. Well, let's add a bunch of really good defensive players. Hard to argue, right? I mean, you add Sauce Gardner, who fits what they want to do at corner and is going to be probably a linchpin player for the next several years. And, they move on and then get Garrett Wilson. So now they have that Isaac Bruce, right? That somewhat slender, but very, 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 great ball tracking, very good route runner, probably just a notch below Olave in my mind amongst the two Ohio Staters. That's the one sort of separator for me, as I think one's a slightly better route runner, but they're very similar. Whichever one of them you got, you're going to get a really good football player. But Wilson has a little more height, probably a tiny bit more speed, or once again about the same. But he's going to be a terrific player for them as well. I mean, you're getting foundational pieces. If you keep getting foundational pieces and you do it repeatedly, your team should get better. But were they done? Were they finished? No, they come back. Well, not come back, but they kept working the board, right? And so they get Jermaine Johnson. And I feel like amongst the pass rushers in this class, the one who's the most ready to go right out of the box, right? You just sort of showed him where he changes, right? Here's your uniform, here's where you change. And then, I mean, we could do rookie minicamp if it, makes you feel better, but the guy who thinks best ready to compete for playing time amongst all the pass rushers and make immediate impact, that guy. Jermaine Johnson just needs to know where to get dressed, when they pay, what day payroll runs, when do you have practice, where do you have practice, and then, here's the game schedule. The coaches will need to do very little with him. He's very, very ready. So that's just getting started, right? And then to get Breece Hall in the second, who both is good value and a need. Like it's hard to find a pick that I don't like. So the Jets kept doing it right? For all the classic memes of the sad Jets fans on draft day, cursing their fate. And, there's a very famous one where as he announced the pick, even before they get the name of the player out, you hear someone go, they just say the position, and the player and one of the fans is back or it's in New York goes, "Oh no!" As if he literally watched a family member die. So Jets fans, be of good cheer. The good times are coming. If they keep drafting like this, they'll be able to take the long suffering out of your body.
Yes, absolutely. When you talk about the Jets, I haven't seen a draft when it comes to them this well executed. This is probably the Mike Tannenbaum days at earliest. You know, especially when you consider the fact of who you have as a head coach. Robert Saleh, great defensive coordinator. One of his staples is having an excellent defensive line, of course, anchored by Nick Bosa. But you also had guys like Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas, D Ford, so on and so forth. Absolutely incredible pickup to get Jermaine Johnson, especially that late in the draft. You also got to consider the fact of look at the rooms on offense. Running back room, you have a very nice trio, almost a three-headed dragon. Brees Hall, Michael Carter, and then he's gonna escape my name, Ty Johnson. And then you also look at the wide receiver room. You had Garrett Wilson to Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Braxton Berrios, who I think is one of the more underrated slot receivers in the NFL. An absolute excellent display. I'm going to kick it to you, Greg. Who is your winner of the 2022 NFL Draft?
A team that generally wins most years in the draft, and that's the Ravens. Year after year after year, they just find these guys that fit their system that they can get without paying too big of a price to get them, and it's just year after year. The only pick of the Ravens that I would say that wasn't really that great, but they can afford to try and develop the guy would be Daniel Lale, the massive tackle from Minnesota. Well, he may be massive, he needs a lot of work. But outside of that pick, they just hit time and time and time again. And you shake your head every year because it's the same thing every year. They get the guys that they need at the positions they need them at. They don't go chasing, and it just seems to work for them every year. And that's really excellent scouting.
It is. Their entire front office, since essentially the creation of the franchise was to move from Cleveland, has been on it from literally day one. Wasn't their first draft pick Jonathan Ogden, obviously Hall of Famer? Second draft pick Ray Lewis, another Hall of Famer, right? You look at the transition from Ozzie Newsome to Eric DeCosta, seemingly flawless, essentially. Yep. You look at the draft this year, they get two guys who a lot of people had in their top 10 overall in the first, outside of the top 10. Obviously Kyle Hamilton slipped because of what happened at his pro day and obviously the combine, but he's still going to be an excellent safety, more of I would say, a hybrid linebacker safety, as Bill, you alluded to in one of our episodes earlier. You get Tyler Linderbaum, arguably one of the best interior linemen in the draft, the best center in the draft, without a doubt, and probably one of the best interior linemen when it comes to run blocking in the draft. Then in the second, you get Ojogbo, right? A guy that was supposed to be a top 15 pick. He fell, obviously, because he had his injury during his pro day. I completely agree with you, Greg. I have them as my winners as well. They absolutely were phenomenal. And they got a first-round pick for Marquise Hollywood Brown. I mean, yeah. I'm not trying to evaluate or try to make any claims, but I don't think Hollywood Brown is worth a first-round pick. So excellent business by them. My winner is the Kansas City Chiefs. Right? They had as many rolls of the dice as almost anybody else in the field due to the Tyreek Hill trade. And to me, they hit time and time again. Trent McDuffie, cornerback that can also play free safety. They lost Tre'Davious Ward, so getting him in was a major bonus. Somebody that Greg picked during the Macapalooza when he was the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs, George Karlaftis. Excellent addition to a defensive line that needed an edge rusher, especially when Chris Jones, in my opinion, is a better interior lineman as well. We don't know what Frank Clark's future is, but to me, the gem of the whole class came in day 2 when they were able to select Sky Moore. Excellent receiver. The wide receiver room is diverse. I agree with what people have been saying that Kansas City is going to switch up their offense, become a more run-heavy, essential offense in terms of years past with Mahomes. You guys got Ronald Jones to be that kind of workhorse for them. You have a different wide receiver room, but overall, they absolutely hit in this draft, and they're going to be, honestly, probably the AFC representative in the Super Bowl 5-6 more times before Mahomes' career is over.
Yep.
Let's talk about the losers of the draft. A lot of questionable picks were made, especially from Greg's Cowboys, but I'll talk about them later. I'm going to kick it to you, Greg. Who is your loser in the draft? Greg?
Yep.
I don't know if you heard me. We
Greg
might have
was
a
so stunned when you mentioned the Cowboys that he's just recovering from it.
Yeah, right. But that's all right. Greg, who is your loser in the draft?
There's a couple of teams that we're not even going to go to New England because they just draft differently from everybody else. Okay, so let's leave that out. They just do it differently. I think the Arizona Cardinals lost in the draft. I just didn't like their draft at all. They've gone off-ball linebacker, and now tight end in the first round of the last three drafts. It just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you, especially when you consider the fact of who was on the board at 20. I believe it was 26. They had or 23. It was 23 because before the Cowboys, I was at 24. They traded the 23 third pick for Hollywood Brown, which would be nice as a second option, right? While Elijah Moore develops, not Elijah Moore, but Rondell Moore develops. But today, the NFL just announced DeAndre Hopkins has been suspended for 6 games for performance-enhancing drug violation. So I completely agree with you. They failed to capitalize on the first-round pick. I like Trey McBride, but you also just gave Zach Ertz an extension as well. Where does that fit into their air raid system? Cardinals, once again, they take 1 step forward and 8 steps back. It seems like it's a franchise. But, they can say that about a bunch of other teams on this list. I'll talk about the Cowboys later, but to me, the biggest loser was the Washington Commanders, in my opinion. I have no disrespect to Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver, but you already have a wide receiver room that consists of Scary Terry McLaurin and also Curtis Samuel. You also have De'Ami Brown from North Carolina, who had a very nice rookie year. Adam Humphries, who had a resurgent year last year. And quite frankly, what new element does Dotson bring to that wide receiver room? The only reason I see you make a move like this is to be able to block with Terry McLaurin and not give him the extension. Moving on in the second round, they picked Mathis, Philander and Mathis. I apologize if I mispronounced his first name. I like him as a player. I thought it was a nice pick, not for them. You already have a defensive line that's probably top 5 in the league, especially on the interior when you have De'Aaron Payne and also Jonathan Allen. To me, a move like that means that the rumors about you getting rid of Payne is true, and that's just another step backwards as a franchise. Alongside the fact you did have a very nice interior lineman in Matt Ioannidis, who you gave an extension to, but then you cut him. Just a lot of weird moves. I thought they were going to go Devin Lloyd in the first. He was on the board when their pick came up. That's a need for them. They could have went secondary as well, or they could have went offensive line. So many ways you could go. The position they're very strong in. That's why I consider the Commanders the loser of the 22 NFL draft. To you, Bill, when you're ready, who is your loser of the draft?
I'm going to go with the Jaguars. And they had some good picks and they had some picks. And they made a – now, I like them getting Devin Lloyd. I think they gave up maybe a little more than they should have to get Devin Lloyd. And they're a team that's not 1 or 2 players away. If I'm the Jaguars, I'm trading down as often as possible, quite frankly, instead of trading up. So I'm not going to belabor the Trayvon Walker thing too much. It's clearly they're just rolling the dice and hoping, they're hoping to, hit sevens or draw to an inside straight or, pick a gambling metaphor you like. But a lot of the things that they're looking for in him are things that are speculative, right? If once again, I said, Justin Tuck with the jetpack. If that's what you want and you take that guy first overall, then I'm wondering why you're taking him first overall. Once again, why the heck did you trade back if you could find a partner? But I think he'll end up being a good player, but not a great one. And you just took him first overall. I like Devin Lloyd, but you gave up pick 33. Well, you swapped pick 33 and 27. Yeah, so from this early second to the late first. Also gave up 106 and 180. There were really good players on the board in this draft at 106 and 180, in case you're wondering. So hopefully he turns out to be. They're picking him to be their green dot guy. Hopefully he's a great, and it'll take some of the sting out of it. But it just felt like you gave up a little more than you should have to get a guy that isn't that much different from other guys that I think you could have gotten later. Anyway, I like the Fortner pick. That's good value getting him at 65. And Chad Muma might end up being just as good as Devin Lloyd. You got him at 70. So I like the player, but it sort of feels like almost like they're saying, well, just in case we blew it with this pick, one of these guys is going to work out. I almost felt like that. Like, okay, just in case we blew it with one of them, one of these guys has got to be good. Snoop Connor, he's not a bad running back, but there's better running backs still on the board at that point, in my opinion. But it's pick 154. I'm not going to kill them for it. They then traded pick 157 and pick 235 for a 2023 fourth round pick because I felt like doing it. I mean, I don't know. Here's one of my favorite picks. They closed strong at least. Their last two picks were actually really good. They got terrific value with their last two picks. Gregory Jr. from Wichita Baptist is going to be, worst case scenario, a terrific special teamer. But I think he eventually becomes a rotation to starter type player at corner. And then Montreal Brown, I think, is a future starter as well. So they killed it with their last two picks, but they're the top and middle, not so sold on.
Yes. I have to agree with you. I don't mind the Trayvon Walker selection in terms of instead trade down because I don't think there was really a market for them.
Right. That's the only thing I guess you couldn't have traded. But you could have taken.
Yeah, I think you should have left tackle personally.
What? Yeah, but
the problem players are available.
Yes.
The problem is this is going to be the issue for fans who don't understand all of this sort of stuff. They just see first overall pick. Why isn't he getting me 18 and a half sacks a year? And they're going to kill this kid. It's not the kid's fault. It is the organization's fault.
Yes.
It is all on the organization, but a lot of fans will put it on this poor kid, young man. And that's the issue I have with it.
When he's a 5.5, 6.5 sack guy, they're going to lose their minds. Yeah.
And it's the same issue I have with what potentially could happen to the kid that Dallas took. He is not an NFL left tackle as of today. They shouldn't have even mentioned a single word about him being a left tackle now or down the line. That is a disservice to that young man. And because fans,
you broke up. Could you repeat who you talked about left tackle?
Tyler Smith for the Cowboys.
Yes.
He's a guard. He is a guard at the NFL level. He doesn't have the requisite skills that you want to see, especially at the most premium position on the offensive line today. The Joneses and everybody else in the Dallas media should be shot for mentioning him as a left tackle. He's nowhere near there. No.
Yes. We will get into the Cowboys in a second because that is going to take probably a majority of our show. I do want to jump back to the Jaguars in a second. I thought that personally, I felt there was no way to move that pick. However, now we can see with Monday morning eyes, we can Monday morning quarterback it. Let's think about these couple things, and I want to get you guys' opinion on it. Personally, I have been going left tackle for a long time, and quite frankly, I wanted Evan Neal at first, but I was going Neal or Iquanu, especially once the Jaguars earlier that day extended Cab Robinson. I'm thinking you take Iquanu. He's a great, probably the best run blocker in the whole draft. You can move him to guard. That's another thing to surround Lawrence with, and then you can operate from there. Trayvon Walker, I think, is the 7th defensive player selected by the Jaguars since 2015. You got Dante Fowler, who didn't really pan out before he got traded to LA. Jalen Ramsey, who did pan out, and then he was forced to trade him to LA.
Right. They nailed the pick,
exactly,
but they screwed up the relationship.
Yeah, and guess what they did with that extra pick? They spent it on C.J. Henderson, who's not even on the team anymore. He got traded to Carolina. The only two defenders you can say that was successes were actually really good successes. Jalen Ramsey, who's a top 3, if not the top cornerback in the league, and Josh Allen, who is arguably top 5 in offense, being an outside linebacker. However, you just keep missing. It's a lot of gambles, but you keep crapping out every single time. I felt you bring in an excellent lineman in Iquanu, or honestly, something that we have never talked about. A.J. Brown was on the market. You don't think bringing a guy in like A.J. Brown could have helped out. You probably wouldn't have to give up that much extra value because he's the #1 overall pick. You have the money to extend him. They have money out the hoo-ha at the moment. It just didn't make any sense. You take two rookie linebackers, right, to replace Miles Jack, who I thought was decent, but probably needed a change of scenery after Saxonville dissolved. You traded away Schobert last year after giving him an extension.
One of those guys is going to be Schobert, and one of those guys is going to be Jack. And then 4 years later, they'll be drafting someone to replace them.
Yeah, so which one is going to end up on the Steelers, Lloyd or Muma? Take your bet. Take your pick.
Chad Muma.
Yeah,
Muma becomes a Steeler.
Probably. Devin Lloyd probably becomes a commander after for about $50 million more. But then that's beside the point. Trent Baalke is not a good drafter. I think we have to accept that. He wasn't good in San Francisco. He wasn't.
But he makes up not being a good drafter for also but being very bad at keeping good players. Yeah. So
yeah. Actually, just for fun, I looked up the roster during Chip Kelly's first and only year in San Francisco. I almost cried seeing how bad it was. My Lord. Everyone talked about the whole Kaepernick versus Dabbert quarterback situation. Take a look at the other 10 men on the field and the 11 on defense.
Both those guys were doomed.
No. When your #1 receiver is, I think, Andre Ellington, you got issues. But for me, let's take it back to our second winners of the draft. I'll kick it off. To me, the second team that I thought had a phenomenal draft was the team that picked up A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. At this moment, depends on the play of Jalen Hurts. The Eagles are the #1 team in the NFC East at the moment. I had the Cowboys going into the draft. I think the moves that the Eagles made eclipsed them, depending on the quarterback play. Obviously, the trade for A.J. Brown, that was the big storyline on the day. But if you look at the guys that they picked up Nakobe Dean in the third. Obviously, he had some medical issues, but that's a guy that you can let rest and develop. Yep. Picked up a bunch of more guys, which I'll talk about later. I just feel that Howie Roseman had a whale of a draft for Philadelphia. Right. And then you look at everybody else in the division. Giants, I like their first two picks, Neal and Thibodeau. Wan'Dale Robinson at 34, 36, 38 overall. That was interesting. Are they going to move on from Kadarius Toney? A lot of weird things going on there. They declined Daniel Jones' fifth option. I just, from a organization standpoint, I think they just put themselves in the driver's seat to have at least one home playoff game come the new year. I'm going to kick it to you, Greg. Who is your next winner of the NFL draft?
I'm going to give you a team that's quote unquote in disarray. They still don't have what many consider to be an NFL starting quarterback. But the Seattle Seahawks had a really good draft for a team that needed a.
Yes, they did. 1 second, Greg. I think you broke out. So we'll wait for him to come back. But Seattle did have a good draft. And before he begins on his argument, I do want to add, of course, they wait for Wilson to leave before they start building their O-line. There's Greg back. Sorry, Greg, you kind of went in and out.
Don't worry. Yeah, I was just saying the Seahawks had, obviously they had a lot of needs, but they found a lot of needs in this draft with very good value. So I think they did really well for themselves. And you could almost put the Falcons into that same category with them. Kind of very close. So yeah, a couple of the bird teams did pretty well for themselves. I disagree about the Giants draft. You couldn't miss with the 5 and the 7, but after that, they took some reaches. They did reach, so they better hope these guys pan out.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's what I was saying. I like the first two. The rest of the draft, that was a lot of head scratchers for me. Do I quickly touch on Seattle? Not only did they get a left tackle, they got a right tackle as well. And not only a right tackle, a guy that actually played right tackle in college, which seems to be the rarity nowadays. Charles Cross on the left. Yeah, Abraham Lucas on the right. The running back room has been reinforced with, to me, who was RB1 off the board, Kenneth Walker. Oh, that was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers GM. I got a lot of heat for taking Walker, but that's just how much I believe in him in general. It just fits their philosophy, especially if you don't know what you're going to do at the quarterback position. if they go on and get one of the many studs in the 2023 draft at the quarterback position, they have set them up for incredible success, considering the fact that the team's already ready to go within their rookie year. They can spend more money in free agency come 2023, 2024. Seahawks have made, they made excellent moves. I'm going to kick it to you, Bill. Who is your next winner of the draft?
Well, unfortunately, we're going to be repeating some names, but I mean, think of what the Chiefs did. They come away with Trent McDuffie, who's going to hit the field right away, either outside or inside, right? Either as a nickel or as an outside corner. Kalafdis is a guy that I'm not going to quite predict this, but I won't be surprised if he's a contender at least for Rookie of the Year on the defensive side of the ball. I think he ends up making immediate impact and has a very good rookie season. And then he gets Sky Moore, pick 54, who's going to, oh my God, dynasty draft people are going to go nuts for Sky Moore, right? He's going to have a fantastic, once again, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, I won't be surprised if he's a strong contender for offensive rookie. If they might have players who are in the top 3 of the voting when it's all over for both offensive and defensive rookie of the year on a team that's not exactly garbage. The last I checked, you throw in Leo Chenal, right, who's going to see the field and probably initially in situations, right? He'll be a situational guy. He'll probably come on, play a little, designated pass rusher, Sam linebacker, hybrid. And then I know not everyone's familiar with Josh Williams. I'm very familiar with Joshua Williams. An absolute steal.
Bill, he's got to be he's got to be in, if we put 5 in, both of us are going to mention him in that top 5 for steals.
Yes. So obviously more people are more familiar with McDuffie.
Yeah.
He's not less talented than Trent McDuffie. I know you maybe never knows Joshua Williams, but heck, hit up Ben Fennell's timeline, okay? Shout out to my boy Ben Fennell, ESPN. Or is it NFL Network? Whichever place Ben works. The NFL Network, sorry. But hit up Ben Fennell's timeline. He's got some Joshua Williams cut-ups. And, I mean, he looks like he doesn't belong there. Like, he's a little too good for the guys he's playing against, which is what you want to see when you're watching a guy at Fayetteville State. He's clearly the best player on the field every time he takes the field in college. But he goes to the combine and clearly belongs, right? Everywhere he's been trotted out, he clearly belongs. He is not overmatched. It's not too big for him. It's not too fast for him. He is a talent. Yeah. The only pick I'm not in love with, because to get Darian Kennard where they got him, are you kidding me? Is Jalen Watson. And he's not garbage, but it's just like, they were like, home run, triple, home run, triple, home run, weak single. It's not awful, but it's just not keeping up.
Where they took him, where they took him, Bill. I mean, it's not like it was.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, they were killing it. Now it's like, And then to finish up with Isaiah Pacheco, who, worst case scenario, special teamer, speed back, goes on the field in certain situations. Fast Willie Parker, right? For those who are looking for a guy to think of, or he used to spell what's his name in Ken Davis, right? He used to spell Thurman Thomas back in the day in Buffalo. From Texas Christian, I believe, is where Ken Davis went to. But he's a small, compact, but super fast running back. Think about Ken Davis back in his day spelling Thurman Thomas in certain situations for the Bills. And then, once again, a terrific special teams player who might eventually see the field as a safety is Nazeeh Johnson. He is a freak athlete, first of all, one of the best pure athletes in the whole darn draft. But he's also a good football player. It's like the guy's just an athlete. He's, once again, throwing his Marshall tape. He's a good player, but he's probably a special teamer initially. But I love this draft.
Yeah, and just some news in case anyone was wondering, Kansas City also signed undrafted free agent Justin Ross out of Clemson.
Former 5-star, former on some people's rating boards, the number 1 high school receiver in the country, according to some people.
And he was no scrub in college before his injury either.
He had a series of very frightening injuries.
Yes.
So I mean, but it's worth the shot.
It's worth the gamble. And he's entering both a system that he doesn't have to contribute anytime soon concerning the wide receiver room, especially the guys that you just mentioned, alongside the fact that for the money, it's an incredible deal. And the fact that I'm a Notre Dame hater. I know you're a Notre Dame lover, Greg. So that might throw
What
us
else?
off a bit.
You are a man of intelligence and culture. I love that about you.
Oh, see, there he goes. There he goes. Yeah.
Yes, I am just a salty man who's still salty about the 2008 Hawaii Bowl, where my Hawaii Warriors was absolutely stomped by the offensive guru of Charlie Weiss, Jimmy Clausen, first round pick Jimmy Clausen as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Who
With
went in the
that
second
being
round?
said,
But
Justin Ross absolutely
but
killed Notre Dame.
Mel Kiper announced that, as you all remember, that if Jimmy Clausen didn't pan out, he would retire, right? He'd turn in his hair pomade or whatever it is that he would have retired from.
Yeah, Jimmy Clausen was the model for what a quarterback should be, right? Good size, good frame, beautiful throw. My goodness, look at the ball just come out of his hands. And fortunately, you have to use up here to be successful in the NFL and college. And well, we all know how that went. Going back to the Eagles, I just want to emphasize this point again. You get Jordan Davis for your first round pick, right? But you're already entering a defensive line that doesn't need you to contribute right away. You still got Fletcher Cox for another year. You still got Brandon Graham, but they are aging out. So Jordan Davis is the best replacement for them. You get a guy like Cam Jurgens, center out of Nebraska. Somebody Jason Kelsey is very, very high on. Not only that, you on an O-line where you just got Landon Dickerson the year before, right? You had Simon Mailata to a big extension. Great moves all around. Then you go out and get A.J. Brown with that draft pick. You still have 2 firsts next year for a team that was trying to get rid of Carson Wentz and looked to be in peril. They changed it around quick. The year after they get rid of Carson Wentz, they make the playoffs. The year after that, here they are. And then not only that, they just, like I said, stockpiled draft picks for 2023, especially if they're going to go after a quarterback, depending on how Jalen Hurts plays out. It's incredible. Also, the Eagles haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver, actual wide receiver, since Jeremy Maclin in, I believe, 2013, 2014.
Yeah, it's been a minute, yes.
It's been a minute, but Devontae Smith is very close, less than 100 yards away last year. And now you're bringing a guy like A.J. Brown. The future is bright for the Eagles. Where the future is not bright is for our next round of losers. I'm going to kick it to you, Bill. Who's your next loser in the draft?
Now, with the caveat that they did get Devontae Adams, so that sort of softens the blow. But they did not have a good draft for the most part. I do really like the Dylan Parham pick. I think he immediately comes onto the field and helps them in the running game, as well as the passing game. He could play either of the guard positions, probably could snap the ball and play center, probably if he had to as well. But I've seen him play both left and right guard in his career at Memphis. He's a terrific athlete, and I think he's the best pick they had all day. Zamir White is a running back by committee back, right? He has a lot of things that you like about him. He has sort of a checkered previous history, a guy that I think has had 2 ACLs, or is it? Yeah, two ACLs, which is not ideal. You have to go back to like Terry Allen, I guess, to find the last long-term success in the running back position who had 2 ACLs coming out of college.
Quick question, don't mean to interrupt you. What kind of injuries and how many did Frank Gore have? Because I swear he had 2 knee surgeries when he was at Miami.
Frank Gore, but it was on the same knee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. I should have been more specific. He blew out each of his ACLs, the left and the right. Right, which Terry Allen's the last long-term successful running back I can think of who'd blown out both of them in college and still had a decent NFL career. And I'd love to see him pan out, but there's certainly some, and once again, it's the 4th round, so I'm not going to kill the pick, but there were healthier, more productive running backs available if you wanted to go running back there. Just me talking. But I do like things about Zamir White. And if he's going to be in a rotation that hopefully protects him, Neil Farrell's a solid pick. Not a great pick, but a solid pick. Then they go Matthew Butler, who's also somewhat similar player right afterwards. I mean, they're not the same player, though. Butler's more athletic, obviously. And more of a, they'll probably move him around 4-3. And they'll probably just put, Farrell right there on the nose, I'm guessing. Thayer Mumford, that's in terms of value. I don't love the player, but I do love the value. Thayer Mumford's a solid enough player and you got him, where you should get him. Britton Brown, I don't think even makes the team. Once again, I think there are better running backs to be had. Justin Chestnut went undrafted. He's a better running back. Whatever. So I get it. I know they traded away a lot of picks to get Devontae Adams, and I understand that. But I still think they could have gotten more out of this draft than they did.
Yeah, that's a very fair statement. And I just want to add that I'm not sure about last year, but I believe that. I think it's been 2 or 3 consecutive years the Raiders have had a draft pick that got cut, that didn't make the 53-man roster. The more important part was it was Tanner Muse and Lynn Bowden Jr. 3rd-round picks that were
right.
there.
Yeah, so you don't want that. That's not what you want.
That's not what you want.
Cutting 3rd-rounders.
I do want to take a second to talk about the Raiders real quick. A longtime friend of the show and a longtime friend of mine, Tyler Fukuroda, a guy that was with us for the NFL draft. Unfortunately, he will no longer be available to come on the draft because he has got a job with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh,
yes.
Oh,
exactly.
Nice. That's what I like to hear.
Shout out to him. Yeah, it's incredible. He's now working with them. I'll keep you guys updated on how that goes. But he was formerly, I think he still is a member of the UNLV football department. He is also finishing up his bachelor's degree, so he's got a lot of things going for him.
Okay. Oh, wow. So he's in what department again?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know he's at an entry level position, so he's
yeah. He said he's finishing his bachelor's. So I'm assuming they weren't making him the chief financial officer or
no.
director of personnel. Yeah. But yes,
nothing like that quite yet. But he's a guy that's right, because you never know where it's gonna go, especially. But he's got a lot of things going on for him. I want to give a big shout out to him. Right now, he is a Las Vegas Raider, and soon I hope he will be in that war room making picks. Just preferably not for the Raiders, because I am a Chargers fan, and that would break my heart. Yes, but I would like to talk about my loser, and you guys are gonna look at me weird, like most times, for what I'm about to say, especially since I like all the picks that they made. I just don't like the team that made it because I felt that they had different needs to go on. And that is the Green Bay Packers. And here's the thing. I like every move they made. I like Quay Walker, not 22, but I like him in general. I'm a big fan of Devontae Wyatt. Christian Watson, you guys have been high on for a very long time. After looking at the film, my goodness, is he Heinz Ward coming out of North Dakota State. Man, he likes to put the lumber on people. You got Sean Ryan out of UCLA, Romeo Dubs, who we all think is going to be a great deep threat wide receiver. I watched him burn both my Hawaii Warriors and my alma mater, UNLV Rebels, time and time again. Zach Tom coming out of Wake Forest is going to be more of an interior lineman going forward. Kingsley Ebenare, I apologize if I mispronounced his name, out of South Carolina. Great picks.
Kingsley Ebenare, yeah.
Thank you. Great picks.
I have to wonder why everyone's saying Zach Tom is being kicked inside. He was really good at tackle. Ask Jermaine Johnson II about Zach Tom.
I think Bill. I think it's more of most people just don't see that he has the power to deal with some of the guys coming off the edge. I think they're wrong.
But inside, isn't he got to do more power? Like that seems like the opposite.
Technically he has more as a tackle right now than a lot of these other guys do. Technically,
yes. I don't get why everyone's assuming this guy can't play tackle in the NFL. That's the part I can't wrap my brain around because he looked really good at tackle to me.
I'm just going off the reports that I've heard, and everyone has been saying he's going inside, regardless you move inside or outside. To me, your first number 2 picks, I like Devontae Wyatt personally, but I thought that was the time you go after a guy like George Pickens coming out of Georgia, somebody like that. And then you can go get a guy like Romeo Dubs later. Offensive line definitely is a concern for the Packers. I do feel like they could have went other places as well with some of those higher picks. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and my just disdain of the Packers not having ownership, because I feel that's made them kind of, what's the right term, stagnant for a long time. And I'll talk about all that in a second. I want to get your guys' take, because I look at this list. I love these picks. I don't love them for the Packers, especially when you got so much money invested on the O-line already in Bakhtiari. You got a really good guy in Jenkins. I don't know. I don't know. I think that you guys could have went so many different directions to give Rodgers a well-balanced and explosive, effective roster, especially at the wide receiver position. And to be some of your bigger defensive needs, it just weren't addressed at the right spots. Let me get you guys' take on that.
My biggest issue is taking Quay Walker at 22.
Yeah.
And that, once again, I don't hate the pick, but I really don't love it. When you think about, think of who else is still available on the board. Okay, Quay Walker is a guy you're sort of betting on the upside, and I get that. I mean, a lot of people do that, and he's athletic, he's got length, and he can move, and blah, blah, blah. But look at all the great linebackers in history, and look at where they are in terms of all the production numbers that matter for linebackers. He's nowhere near any of them. I mean, look at Jonathan Vilma, just as an example. Jonathan Vilma has an 84 percentile number in terms of where he ranked on his team in solo tackle market share. This guy's 39.6.
Yeah.
That's less than half. I get it. They rotate a lot of players through, blah, 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 blah. But you're asking him to become a way more productive player at the NFL level than he was in college. I'm not saying it's impossible. It sometimes happens, but my gosh, that's a lot to ask. I mean, they're thinking he's going to be their new Devondre Campbell. I'm assuming, right? Yeah. I'm assuming. But Devondre Campbell was a much more productive player in college. Like all the guys he's being compared to were way more productive in college than this guy was. So, a one-year starter, wasn't even really a full-time starter, even as a one-year starter. I mean, it's a lot of speculation, I think is the term I'm looking for.
We have
a lot of speculation there.
We have to.
But he's a really good athlete, right? I mean, I guess that's what you're banking on.
What are you saying, Greg?
Yeah. Well, we have to do that with all of these Georgia defenders. However, I mean, that's all of them. There's not one of them.
Yeah, I think there's an argument. Oh, sorry, continue.
There's not one of those Georgia defenders this year, really, outside of Lewis Sign, that's not in that situation.
Right. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big thing that people were saying about Trayvon Walker was that the system that Georgia uses doesn't amplify the strengths or doesn't really take use of them because the system is so effective, right? I think it honestly, it's my opinion, if Jermaine Johnson didn't transfer from Georgia to Florida State, that guy is nowhere near the first round just because of his usage, both on the field and how he's used. Because also, if I'm not mistaken, Quay Walker is the first linebacker off the board. You look at the rest of the draft guys like Chanel and Muma, and basically everyone besides Devin Lloyd, they all fell. You had the opportunity to go up and get a guy like a Treylon Burks if that's what you're interested in. I like the other guys, the Wilsons or Olaves or Jameson Williams, especially when in your division, Detroit went up and got him. I don't really think that the Quay Walker pick was necessary. You got a guy like Devontae White who's probably going to play more inside than outside. Your main replacement is a Darius Smith, who to me was one of the best pass rushers in the NFC while he was in Green Bay.
Right.
I don't see him going forward.
Until his back went on him.
Yeah, right. The Smith brothers for their first season was a special time. Then Za'Darius went supernova in the second season, if I remember. But Preston went nowhere, And then you still haven't found that replacement yet. Do we believe that the Packers are in a better situation than they were before the draft? I can't say they are. Personally, the only guy that I can see making a contribution instantly is the wide receivers. Watson, obviously, more importantly, the run game, and possibly Romeo Doubs is that deep threat. But I mean, maybe you guys will have a different take. I think he's a great deep wide receiver, but he doesn't have that game-changing deep speed. You bring in Sammy Watkins as a replacement for like Devontae Adams. When it comes January and February, the times where you struggle, who's going to be the guy on this draft that's going to step up and make a play? I don't see him on the board at the moment.
I don't see the philosophy. I don't see the philosophy that the Packers have been using. I think they're beating their heads up against the wall because what they have.
Oh, hold on, one second, Greg. Greg, 1 second. Can you talk again? You can kind of cut out. Hello.
Okay.
Now we can hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you please repeat that?
Yeah. So for the Packers, what they've done, their last 3 home playoff losses, all at Lambeau Field, they haven't even touched 20 rushing attempts in those games. Not even 20.
Yep.
Which is very interesting to think about when you consider why would
Yeah,
you want
really
to
good
pass in
run
the
game.
freezing temperatures of Lambeau Field?
And they have
Yep.
such a good running game. And for some reason, they don't refuse to just pound people when they. I know it's a passing league, it's a quarterback-driven league, blah, blah, blah. But both the Chiefs and the Packers would have won some more really high leverage, important games if they had just pounded the other team with the running game. That Super Bowl where they got absolutely destroyed and blown out, if they just come out heavy and just pound early in the run game, they can run them out of that two-man, that soft two-man they were sitting in. And now, after having established a run and probably, run for 6-7 yards a pop, now you force them to say, okay, we can't do this anymore, right? And now you can get your passing game going again. I don't know why teams are so quick to abandon the run game. I understand the analytics. I embrace the passing game, don't get me wrong, but there's no reason to try to use a wrench as a hammer when you have a hammer. Use your hammer as a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense a lot of the time.
No, it doesn't. Especially when you look at the Super Bowl Kansas City won. Let's be real. That would have never occurred if Damien Williams didn't go absolutely insane in that game. Considering also the fact Kansas City in Kansas City versus Tampa Bay Super Bowl, they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like Clyde, but he's not that power running back. He does different things,
and he's not fast.
Yeah.
So you're not fast and you're not powerful.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure I understand what. I kept mocking Jonathan Taylor to them, and of course, think of how different their offense would be if they'd taken Jonathan Taylor. No offense to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I mean the talent gap between those two is so obvious. It's such an obvious gap in talent. You have this world-class athlete in Jonathan Taylor who's 222 pounds that can run like a deer. Yeah. And you're saying Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still a little spark plug, and he fits
the pass game, things like that.
And Mike back watched him play in a national championship game and fell in love.
Right. And people tried comparing him to Brian
Westbrook.
The problem is that Brian Westbrook was super explosive.
Yeah.
Admittedly, Brian Westbrook only ran a 4.58 40, but Brian Westbrook also had a 40.5 inch vertical, which is about almost 8 inches more than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So he's a much more explosive player. He got up to top speed like that.
Yeah.
That's not Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So you're getting a less powerful, slower version of Brian Westbrook in the first round.
Bad. Yeah.
I mean, talk about Westbrook in general. His career does not get enough love as it should. I just think because the numbers aren't there because of how utilized he was in the passing game and how I don't think there was that much of a respect put on receivers that could catch the ball back in the early 2000s. My goodness. I mean, first of all, Villanova just produces the most random, excellent football players. Westbrook, Howie Long. It's just, for a basketball school, they do some interesting things.
They'll have some. Christian Benford, right? I really like that corner that came out of Villanova this year, and they'll have a couple more next year. Some of the guys at Villanova that got signed as undrafted free agents are going to stick on rosters. Mark my words.
Yes.
Well, you won't get this Cowboy fan not praising Brian Westbrook because special teams, passing game, running game, it didn't matter. He lit us up.
That is true.
Yes, and just before we move on, actually to your Cowboys, my favorite memory of Westbrook is it was a game in Dallas. Philly was leading late. Instead of he had a free run to the end zone. Instead of actually going to the end zone, he took a knee at the 1 yard line to kill the game. And that just kind of shows you the type of player that he was. Exactly. Even though that would have put the game out of reach, why chance it when you can end the game right now? Westbrook, I have a lot of love for that guy. Honestly, that whole roster, besides Donovan McNabb, but that's a personal issue that I'll get to later.
Bill, we kind of loved Donovan McNabb, did we not?
Oh my God.
So, okay, but that's okay, Brock. Everybody has their takes.
Wait, what did you got? Wait, what did you guys say about Donovan McNabb?
Donovan McNabb is always going to be a very divisive guy. I mean, when you look at his actual career numbers, if you were to take his name off of it, I think you'd be surprised at how good his career numbers were. But people will never forget the whole, puking at the Super Bowl thing, and and of course the way his career ended, which was, he fell off once again, that's a guy who fell off the cliff. That's a classic fell off the cliff. But he was a really, really good quarterback for a very long time, and I despite all the things that people like to say about him, but for about a 12-year period there, he's a top 4 or 5 quarterback, and that deserves respect.
Yep.
That's a fair point. And I do want to add, he did end his career at Minnesota. And for a lot of people like KC before, for me, Minnesota was the place that quarterbacks' careers went to perish. Obviously, McNabb's, Favre's after his first year. And my favorite, Gus Frerotte.
Archie Manning.
What's up?
Archie Manning.
Yep, exactly.
On that list too.
Right, so Minnesota is a very interesting place when it comes to quarterbacks. For Donovan McNabb, honestly, it was never his play. It was the fact he couldn't get over the hump. And when he did, he couldn't get over the hump again. My first NFC Championship game I can remember watching the full game was him and the Eagles versus the Cardinals, right? And I do have memories of that game because they were whacking Kurt Warner after the play multiple times, trying to, rowdy him up. That it didn't work. Also, I fell in love with that Cardinals team. 3,000-yard wide receivers, Fitzgerald, Bolden, and obviously Steve Preston, I believe. And Jerry and James, a running back I love, was on that team as well. He should have had a ring with Indy. He just had to leave the year before they finally put it together. You also have your three NFC Championship losses in the early 2000s under Reed. You finally get over the hump, and then you blow it to the Patriots, where, like you guys said, the man's vomiting on the field. Teal's playing with a broken leg. Your quarterback's vomiting. Are you serious? Freddie Mitchell's talking trash and not coming through. What else is new? Right?
Well, yeah, now in his defense, until he had Terrell Owens, look at who he's throwing the ball to. James Thrash was his leading receiver, I think 3 times. James Thrash.
3 years.
On a better team, on a better group of receivers. James Thrash is a wide receiver 3, not even wide receiver 2. Todd Pinkston, Fred X,
Lord.
and James Thrash. Put a little more respect on D-Mac's name. He got it done for a long time with receivers. How good would Tom Brady have been? People always talk about Brady didn't have weapons. He would have. That would have killed to have a chance to throw to guys like, David Patton is worlds better than some of the guys.
Of course, everyone's favorite
Troy
guy,
Brown. Troy Brown? First of all, Troy Brown should go in the Hall of Very Good. That's another guy who's wildly underrated. He's a much better player than people realize. With the exception of Terrell Owens, that's by far the best receiver that McNabb got to throw to in his days that would have been, right? If he had a chance to play with a guy like Troy Brown. So yeah, I didn't mean to go down that path, but yes, I did.
No, it's also when you talk about our memories. Funny thing about Troy Brown, the first memory I have of him was muffing a punt in preseason, having the punt come right off his face mask, bam, right into the other team's hands. So, but I agree, he's another guy that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And my goodness, just think about rosters and building teams, right? When you look at those early Patriots rosters from the end of the Parcells era, I guess you can start with winning to the Super Bowl against the Packers, all the way into Brady's first years. My goodness, did they have a lot of ballers. Talking about ballers, Greg put up a stat in our group chat the other day that I want to bring up. The fact that out of 20 first-round selections, you say 17 or 12 Cowboys became Pro Bowlers. What was the number?
14 out of 20, which is 73%.
73%, which is my football number when I played in high school. So that has special meaning to me.
When you take the last 5 drafts in total, take the last 5, that's 160 players, first-round players. Only 21 of them have made the Pro Bowl. So that turns into only 12% in the last 5.
Cowboys, 73%. Rest of the NFL, 12. Man, so how many Super Bowls did they get out of that?
Absolutely none. Steve, which goes to my point, which you see me say often. I don't give a damn about the individual.
Exactly. Now, Greg, take it away. What do you think about the Cowboys draft?
I was not pleased with the Tyler Smith because I knew exactly what this fan base and the Joneses were going to do to the kid. Exactly what happened. They were going to say, "This is our future left tackle," and I just pounced my head off the wall because here comes the used car salesman, word salad tactics, and what you always get out of Jerry and Steven. D. Williams. It's not Sam. He prefers D. So we're use what he says.
Oh shoot, Greg. I know you're on a tangent, but hold on 1 second. Your thing clicked off. All right, and try to talk now. Oh, it's not happening yet. Let's see. Oh, technology. All right, they're back. There we go. Let's go.
So yeah, with D Williams at 56, most people had him for months and months and months at 88. But they kind of knew that there was other teams interested in him, so they had to go with him at 56. I kind of went, yeah, okay. And they sold, not sold. They told us basically that he was going to be a Cowboy throughout this process. He had the visit. There was a lot of stuff that they really liked, his pro day and all that other stuff. You knew he was going to be a Cowboy. The guy that I like the best is third round pick Tolbert. Jalen Tolbert does something that a lot of receivers, even at the top Power 5 schools, which he was not from, he understands how to play receiver with tempo. It's not all just blazing speed. It's tempo. It's when and how you move your hips at that certain point, and bam, you're gone. This kid knows how to play receiver, and he is a steal in the third round.
Yeah, and the Cowboys have had a lot of success at receiver throughout the years. Obviously, they spent a first-round pick on Amari Cooper. Well, I'm talking more of the homegrown talent, CeeDee Lamb, who absolutely exploded onto a guy that I wasn't sure on personally. I had him as my third wide receiver off the board, which he was. That I liked his tools that he had. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to transition into the NFL against NFL defenses, but he's done a spectacular job. Cooper didn't really work out, but he was an addition. But you got to talk about guys like Michael Gallup, Austin, things like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Turbot meshes with that offense, especially early when, as you all know, that's Dak Prescott's bread and butter, getting those 300, 400-yard passing yards in the first 8 games of the season. I had Smith in my last mock going to the Cowboys. I also didn't have Linderbaum being there at 24 either. I've discussed this with you in the chat as well. I thought that they were going to go Tyler Linderbaum, who established that run game through his abilities that he's shown at Iowa. And like I said in multiple interviews and Twitter, things and stuff, having a center that can be a signal caller is a quarterback's best friend. We've seen it with the evolution of Justin Herbert's game, getting a guy like Corey Linsley in who can take away some of that responsibilities. I thought he was the exact thing that the Cowboys needed to replace Charles Frederick, who's been retired for several years, to shore up that interior offensive line, who can learn from a guy like Zach Martin right next to him. That's where I thought the Cowboys were going to go. Greg, if you could have drafted for the Cowboys, where would you have went? Hello?
Oh, sorry, I missed the
Yeah,
end of that.
difficulties. I said if you were Jerry Jones and you had control, who would you have gone with your first round pick?
At that point,
Yes.
with what had gone in front of us, I would have traded back.
I wouldn't blame you. You know, there was a lot of excellent talent that came out of that early second round as well. To me, the Falcons got an incredible steal with I'm gonna mispronounce his name. I apologize. Eben. Can someone help me out? Arnold Eben. Oh Lord.
Arnold Ebiketie.
Thank you. He has a guy that I thought it was an absolute steal. If let's just throw out that hypothetical, right? You traded back. Everyone from the first round has already been selected that we've already seen. Who are the kind of guys that you would have went for and looked for?
At that point, yes. I now know for a fact that Lewis Cine was their number 1 player on the board in Dallas. He was number 1. He was above Tyler. Yeah. And I don't care about positions and all that other sort of stuff. The Cowboys have been talking about BPA, best player available. If Lewis Cine was number one on that board, he should have been the pick. And he would have been, had I traded back to like 30 or 31, I would have gone with him.
If you guys could have drafted Scene, that would have been Trayvon Diggs' best friend. Wow, that is a game-changing pick right there. Very interesting that they didn't go with him either at a trade back or at 24 in general. Wow. I don't honestly for the longest time, maybe since probably Roy Williams, I can't remember the Cowboys having a game-changing safety.
We don't do that. We don't do that.
No, you guys don't.
No, defensive tackles and safeties do not exist early in the draft. They just don't.
Yeah, definitely not for you guys. Wow, that is something. This is why we called it Greg for all our Cowboys insight. That is a game-changing acquisition. That's a guy that starts day one, come the 2022 season. Bill,
but hey, the better news on that front is they got an absolute steal of safety at UDFA in Marquise Bell.
Yes, you did.
There was a lot of pretty good or excellent undrafted free agent safeties. Obviously, Bell, a guy I want to bring up was Vernon McKinley out of Oregon, and a guy that I was high on, Leon O'Neal out of Texas A&M as well.
Yeah.
They fell off. Very interesting. We'll get into the UDFA a little later after we finish with the Cowboys. Bill, what do you think about the Cowboys draft?
Well, I'm a Tyler Smith fan, especially in the second round. But, here he is in the first. So it is what it is. I think he's a good player. I think he might be a guy that backs up more than one position and maybe fights his way into the starting lineup I guess he plays but center. I guess theoretically he could play. He might end up pushing. I mean, some people say that eventually he's going to replace Tyron Smith. We'll see. Admittedly, Tyron Smith has not been able to stay healthy for an entire season in 7 years, so that gives you reason for pause. But people are sort of assuming he's going to beat out Connor McGovern. That seems to be what everyone's sort of assuming, and they'll play at left guard initially. It's possible. He could be a swing. Like I said, we'll see. But he's going to find his way into the top 6 or 7, obviously, in that offensive line room, and possibly into his top 5 sooner rather than later. He's got to clean up his hand usage, and a lot of some technique stuff has to be worked on, but he certainly has all the talent in the world. D. Williams, thank you for the information, is a guy that, once again, Randy Gregory's out, new guy with character, at least yellowish flags, is in. Charges were dropped regarding that sexual battery case, and he has some other, sort of slip-ups in his collegiate career. How much does that bother you? I mean, clearly the Cowboys are not the most risk averse when it comes to character. It would take us a little while to go through all the players they've had in who had something in their background. But my understanding is that he really is working on putting that stuff behind him, and hopefully not ahead of him. But he's a terrific pass rusher. I mean, he is really the best pass rusher in the SEC, and that's saying something. But I mean, nobody was a better pass rusher in the Southeastern Conference this year than Sam Williams. D. Williams was. He was productive against good teams. Really productive against bad teams. But I mean, consistently productive. So that's a guy that should be able to. Once again, he may not be a day one starter, but I think you'll see the field early and often, particularly in obvious passing downs. My favorite pick is, just as was said earlier, the Jalen Tolbert selection. Getting him at pick 88 to me is grand larceny. I think he finds his way on the field in 4 wide receiver sets right off the bat, and I think he finds his way into the 3 wide receiver rotation sooner than some people think. I think somewhere towards the middle of the season, he's in there on 3 wide receiver sets, not just 4 wide receiver sets. Ferguson gives you quality depth at tight end, and once again, maybe a starter in the future. The Waletzko pick, if there's a pure value, might be your best. I mean, getting him where you got him that's terrific. And once again, worst case scenario, he's a swing, but I think he pushes his way onto the field, pretty soon. I'm a big Deron Bland fan. I was surprised that he ended up in Dallas, though. Like, Zuta Lors, not 1 but 2 non-power 5s. Like, I was checking to make sure it wasn't a fever dream. I was quite taken aback see this. This is, once again, the Tolbert thing was a bit of a surprise. To see him come back and take Bland, blown away. I didn't see that coming. I thought he'd go somewhere around that point in the draft, but not to the Cowboys. Never in a million years would I pick the Cowboys. Now, part of it could be that the Kelvin Joseph situation has deteriorated. Is that the term one should use? It doesn't look good.
Will deteriorate.
Or will deteriorate. That's probably the term I should use. It doesn't look good. So that's part of what motivated it, but he's a really good football player. And I see he may be seeing the field a lot more than some people might have known. Obviously, Damone Clark had some fairly significant injury concerns, but he's a really good football player. And his knee probably keeps him out for a season, but if he becomes what you think he's going to become, you got a really good pick. And then John Ridgway is, to sort of paraphrase my friend Jeff Barnes, a big old garbage can full of cement. I mean, he's no fun to play against in the run game. He doesn't give you a lot in the pass game, but let me rephrase that. He gives you more than you think you'd get from a guy like him in the pass game, right? A guy that doesn't look like he should be able to affect the passer. But he actually gets some pressure, gets some push, and he did have a couple of sacks in his 1 year at the big time. I got to see him in person playing against Northern Illinois when he was at Illinois State, and they gave Northern Illinois all they wanted. The Redbirds gave the Huskies quite a battle, and he was one of the best players in the field, counting all the guys at Northern. He was one of the best 3 or 4 players in the field. And then nice work on the Devin Harper pick. Once again, that's a pick that makes a lot of sense. One, special teams. I mean, that's another guy who, worst case scenario, is going to be, he might be one of the leading tacklers in all of the league in special teams. He only was a full-time starter for 1 year, but the Cowboys care less about that than some teams. I've noticed they're willing to take more of a dice roll on 1 year, especially this late in the draft for 1 year wonders. But played well in big games. Had 10 tackles against Oklahoma. He had 10 tackles against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. Really good athlete. He and Malcolm Rodriguez, who is my favorite of the Oklahoma State linebackers, but both of those guys are really good football players. And one, is, I think, the more developed player, and that's Rodriguez. The other one is the guy that looks like you'd have more fun developing, and that's Devin Harper. But they're both good players, so I think you're gonna hang around the league for quite some time. So yes, I think it's a roller coaster a little bit with the Cowboys, but it is most years for the Cowboys, where it's like, wait, what? But sort of, you're constantly, sort of trying to decide how you feel because they're taking you on a journey.
Yes. That is definitely, and I just want to mention Jake Ferguson real quick because I am a big fan of the Wisconsin run offense. I would like to admit one of my worst takes ever in the college football scene was that I thought Graham Mertz was going to be a Heisman finalist this year. And then I watched 3 games and I rescinded that take. But Jake Ferguson, obviously the grandson of legend Barry Alvarez, can both play tight end and fullback, so it does give you a lot of versatility on offense. D. Williams, what I'm going to be curious how they're going to use him, but more importantly, how they're going to use both Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Are going to have 3? I'm assuming all 3 of them are going to be pass rushers on passing downs. But let's talk about just the other downs. Are you going to move DeMarcus on the inside? Is D just going to be a rotational guy for the first year? If he is just a rotational guy, are you looking to get rid of Lawrence next year? Are you going to play Parsons more at the Mike linebacker? Very interesting things to see. Dan Quinn is going to have a lot of toys to play with. Like the Cowboys all the time, we'll see where they go, and if you ever have a worry about seeing them, we'll see all these guys in prime time come this season.
Tell me a team, Brock, that you have seen go from, and they still.
Greg, I can't hear you.
We're gonna have to ask Greg to. That looked like it was fire takes too.
Yeah.
Boy,
I see his eyes. I was like, I'm ready for this. Sorry, Greg, once you come back on, can you repeat that?
Oh, here we go. You guys got me now?
Yeah,
yes,
I got you.
now,
Okay.
Yes.
So here you got this number 1 offensive with yardage and all that other fun sort of stuff. And they did. But you tell me another team that has quickly had their image flipped from being this offensive juggernaut into a team where the defense is now what people are talking about. It happened in season.
Yeah.
Right.
It did. And of course, all that was due to the emergence of probably one of the greatest defensive players of our generation keeps at this pace, Michael Parsons, a guy which you guys had a phenomenal first round last year. Just want to mention that real quick. Not only were they able to select Michael Parsons, they traded back with their rival and they still got a guy that's gonna be putting Jalen Hurts.
And we made sure that organization that plays in a state that their team isn't. I don't know. They play in this different state from where they're named, but anyhow,
Right.
we made sure they didn't get them.
Yes, and that was a masterpiece, a masterclass in drafting. And I agree. I made this statement in the group chat. You have a team that is drafting 73% Pro Bowlers in the first round, a roster that for years upon years is always complete, offense, defense, special teams. Why don't they ever succeed? And thus I made this analogy. Mike McCarthy, being the Cowboys head coach, is like having a Bentley and giving it to a monkey to drive. My goodness, I'm surprised the switch to Dan Quinn wasn't made. I know Skip Bayless has been clamoring for that for a very long time. We'll see if that does eventually happen and what happens with obviously the coordinators, Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, headed into the future. Let's go back into the first round. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity. Let's pick one guy who is we're going to start with our favorite first round pick and then our least favorite first round pick. But the criteria is guy you like, positioning in which they picked in terms of value, and the ability for them to be explosive from the jump. I'm going to kick it to you, Greg. Who is your favorite pick in the first round?
Well, since you two hate the University of Notre Dame, it's Kyle Hamilton with the Baltimore Ravens. Who else?
Of course, Kyle Hamilton, a guy a lot of us had in our top 10s, even our top 5s headed into this whole pre-draft carousel. A guy that has fallen, but my goodness, is he going to be a stud in the NFL? Phenomenal pickup for Baltimore.
But what defense does he fit into?
Of course,
like a glove.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting to see where Baltimore goes. Obviously, as they got rid of Wick Martindale, their former defense coordinator. I don't expect much changes, to be honest. He's joining a secondary that is already elite. Was ravaged by injuries last year, but as everyone's coming back healthy, led by guys like Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, I expect big things out of Hamilton. Great choice. I'm going to kick it to you, Bill. Who is your favorite pick in the first round?
Well, I've mentioned him once before. I'm going to mention him. Jermaine Johnson at 26.
Yeah.
I think he's the other player I think has a real shot to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. If the Jets defense is as much better as I think it might be, and they weren't terrible last year, right? Don't get me wrong. They were terrible last year, but they could be a top 6 defense this year. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, look who they have coming back, right? Yeah. Lawson coming back, right? I mean, that line is loaded.
Yep. They have a chance to be a really good defense. If their offense takes even a little bit of a halting step forward, they should be a 6-7 win team. Just with their offense basically just sort of holding up its end of the bargain. They don't have to be great. They just have to not be a drag on the team. If they can get, out of their own way, basically, on offense, they could be a team people don't want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big question mark surrounding Mekhi Becton right now. But if he can get together, you're going to have an elite left tackle. You're going to have a guy, Vera Tucker, that drafted the first round last year, who's become one of the more versatile run blockers in the NFL. A running back room, which you've already talked about. And, of course, defensively, the mind is there with Robert Saleh. And you probably have the best accumulation of pass rushers since arguably the New York Sack Exchange, right? And not only that, you've also backed it up with getting a guy like Sauce Gardner. And if Hall ever is able to develop, he can be a phenomenal cornerback number 2. He hasn't had a great run in the NFL so far. Jets absolutely nailed that draft, as we said. And my goodness, are they coming for blood? My favorite pick is going to be a biased pick because why not? And it's from my favorite team, the Los Angeles Chargers, Zion Johnson at 7.
That was a good pick, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
He is arguably the best interior lineman in the draft. When you talk about all his measurables, frame, everything, he fits the mold. He's already entering an offensive line that has been rebooted. To the left, if he plays left guard, to the left of him is going to be Pro Bowler Rashawn Slater. To the right of him is going to be Pro Bowler Corey Linsley. right?
Yeah.
Alongside the fact that from an O-line perspective, the only question mark left is right tackle, which they can move Matt Filer out there. They did get Jamari Sayer out of Georgia as well in that draft. He is the perfect piece for them to increase run blocking, be better at run blocking, protect Herbert, and just unlock the weapons up on that offense. Austin Eckler is probably the best dual threat running back in the league, in my opinion. You got a guy like Mike Williams to take a big step. Keenan Allen, who's arguably one of the best route runners in the league. And you did get a guy like Isaiah Spiller. A lot of people were off on him because he had a poor showing at his pro day. A lot of people are saying that he was slow. But my goodness, I watched the film on him. I love his vision.
He was my running back one coming into the season and fairly deep into the season, and then eventually got overtaken by Kenneth Walker III and
Brees Hall.
Brees Hall. But he still was my running back three,
Same with
despite
me.
the absolutely horrific pro day. And I think that, frankly, I don't know what's going on with their strength and conditioning program. If you saw the pro day numbers from pretty much everybody at Texas A&M, everybody tested poorly. Leon O'Neal didn't test well. Weidemeyer had an even worse day.
Weidemeyer looked like he was 83 years old with his time.
It was an astonishingly bad group of testing athletes from guys that looked like good athletes. So I have no idea what's going on with their strength and conditioning program, or where these guys went to prep for the combine or what. But whoever it was, they should maybe demand their money back. It did not go well for any of them.
Exactly. And as we all know, speed as a running back only matters if you get into space, right? Can you get to space? Your speed gets neutralized. Great vision is going to be able to find the holes. And just kind of going back to A&M, a program which I've dogged ever since firing Kevin Sumlin, which they should have. I just felt that the attitude and arrogance of the boosters and the fan base upon the hiring of Jimbo Fisher was unjustified. My goodness, did a bunch of guys we had thought going first, second, maybe third round fall, especially Watermeyer, who was a projected at one point early second round pick. He didn't even get drafted. O'Neal fell, I was thinking third round. He fell off a lot. Spiller fell off. He started falling behind Cook and White and everybody else. I think it's a steal for the Chargers, but back to Zion Johnson, excellent acquisition. And like the Seahawks, they wait until their franchise quarterback leaves. Then they start to build their line. Fortunately for the Chargers, they already got their next franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. Let's go to our worst picks of the first round. You gotta say one, same criteria. I'm gonna go with the guy I don't like just because I don't like him. I'm gonna talk about why. And that is the Saints getting Trevor Penning. Yes, they did have a need at left tackle. Armstead was out last season, hurt, and then obviously now he's on the Miami Dolphins. I think Penning is a penalty machine. I don't like during the one-on-ones every time he got beat, his attitude. That's another penalty machine. He's gonna punch somebody in his first game and get kicked out probably. That's the way that I see it. If not that, Jameis is coming back from a torn ACL. You want your left tackle to throw a 280-pound defensive end right to his knee? That's the kind of thing he does. He's very sloppy. New Orleans needed a very strong acquisition on offense, which they got with Olave because they don't have the brilliance of Sean Payton anymore. I thought Penning
or Teron Armstead.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, they need Teron Armstead, but he's gone out the window. Penning to me is not that dude. I had bus written all over him. So to me, considering the fact that you traded to get 2 first-round picks and pretty much mortgage whatever future you have on this draft, I just think it was a failure from the get-go. I'm going to kick it back to you, Greg. Who is your worst first-round pick?
Well, Bill, you know who I'm about to say. The quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett. There was no need for a single quarterback to be picked in the first round this year. Not one. And Bill and I, we've discussed this for months. And along with Jeff, all three of us have said for months, there is not a first round quarterback in this draft.
Nope.
So.
Yeah, I agree. No mock I've ever made for who they should pick has ever had a quarterback for the 2022 draft. Very interesting that they picked him. I guess maybe the first so they can get that extra 5th year. But to me, he was going to be there in the later round anyway, day 2 anyway. And also,
I think the biggest reason why they go with Pickett is because he is that more mature quarterback in case something happens to Trubisky. They've got a guy behind Trubisky who's got maturity. That's the only reason why he goes, in my opinion.
Which is a fair point, but he's also 24. How much better is this guy going to get? To me, I had Willis number 1 because of just his pure athletic talents, his arm, and I felt that he could fit into multiple systems. And I picked it at 2 for a while. Upon reviewing the film, Ritter was eclipsing him on multiple occasions. I look back at his game against Miami at home. Bomb, 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 triple coverage every time. You know, he's playing in a division, which you already talked about, Baltimore, who has one of the best secondaries in the league. Cincinnati has upgraded on all sides of the ball, so he's not going to have a lot of time in the pocket if he plays this year. Hendrickson was a big addition for them last year to go alongside Sam Hubbard. And then you got Cleveland, who's loaded on defense all over the field. John Johnson. They just picked up Perrion Winfrey, who I'm really high on. Got Myles Garrett, obviously, they still have. I think it's going to be Pick City in the Steel City, personally, and I agree with you. I don't like that pick at all either. I would kick it to you, Bill. Who are you taking as your worst first-round pick?
Yeah, I'm not wild about the pick either. And I was so excited when Jermaine Johnson was still on the board when we were picking. I was like, yes, we're going to get Jermaine Johnson. I was so excited about getting Jermaine. So I was imagining what he's going to look like in Steelers uniform. And, you know.
He would look beautiful in that black and yellow.
Oh, he would look great.
Gorgeous.
And we know how to coach up that position. I mean, we know a little bit about rushing the passer in Pittsburgh. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. It's like, oh, that was the pick. I was like, oh, God, why? I was thinking, like, we'll get Carson Strong late, you know, give him a year to get that knee 100% healthy. I had it all planned out. I really did. I had an entire strategy mapped out. Crazily enough, almost every player I wanted was available at the place where we could have had them. We just, whatever. They should call me next time.
Hey, there's a GM opening now. Colbert just retired.
Good point.
I think he can beat out Louis Riddick. I believe you.
Polish up the resume. But getting back to what you asked me, the actual question you asked me, there's a few candidates. I mean, obviously we've kind of taken shots at Cole Strong already, and he's Cole Strange. Like, Cole Strange is a good football player, but it just seems like they're like bidding against themselves. Like, who else was going to take this guy before they would have picked again? And if you really love him, trade back higher in the second, whatever. But the one I'm gonna, as questionable as all that was, I'm gonna actually go with at pick 22, as I sort of alluded to before. Quay Walker's a good football player. Once again, I'm not saying he's not a good football player, but he's a guy who, once again, was rarely even a full-time starter in college. It's 100% projection, and you're pick 22. There's only 21 players have been selected. You have 2 first-rounders. Somebody would have traded down with you for at least one of those spots. If you really like Quay Walker, I'm convinced you could have traded back 6-7 picks and still gotten it. He's a do everything fairly well linebacker, but there's nothing about him. How is he better than Chad Moma? What is it that he does better than Chad Moma? I mean, I'm actually asking. This isn't snark or anything. I've watched both players. I don't see what he does better than Chad Moma, other than play for Georgia. I guess I should.
Yeah, that's all you need is SEC. That 3-letter acronym is the automatic boost.
There it is. There it is. That's what he does better. He chose a better college destination. There it is. Okay. Asked and answered.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've been hating on that pick for a while. I'm a hater, I'll be honest with you. But especially when you come to the linebacker position, I'm not saying these guys are on his level or anything like that, but you look at all the linebackers selected past the first round. Dean, who I'm high on, but obviously had his injury issues. But besides him, Muma, you had Troy Anderson to the Falcons. You had Christian Harris. Chanel obviously fell to the Chiefs. So many other ways to go. Linebacker wasn't a big need for the Packers because they did get back Devondre Campbell. And I've previously said they have bigger needs to fill. You can go receiver. You can go outside edge rusher.
Yep.
Anywhere, but what if
are they sold on their tight end situation? I'm not. I mean, you wouldn't have taken a tight end there, but once again, trading down, whatever.
Yeah. Trey McBride on the Packers would have been a scary.
That's what I was thinking. In one of my mocks, I mocked him to them, but not the first, but it might have been Yeah, I had them taking a wide receiver with their second first round pick, and I had them taking McBride with their next pick. I mean, whatever. These guys are professionals. I'm sure they know what they're doing, but I just feel like Quay Walker really felt like we just like his tape pick. What the heck? You know what I mean? That's what it felt like to me. They weren't reading the board. They weren't thinking about value. They couldn't have been, right? If you're reading the board or thinking about value, that can't be the pick you made.
No, it can't. But going back to what I said earlier, the reason why I think the Packers will never be as strong as a franchise or organization as it can be is because they lack an owner. They lack the check
person to threaten to fire you. That's exactly the real issue.
You have executives who remain in positions for 20 plus years, leave with retirements, whatever they want, right? While having poor careers, essentially.
Right. Yeah, Ted Thompson was GM for life until he finally said, "Okay, I've done this long enough."
Yeah.
And and then sadly died, what, a year and a half later or something like that?
I think so.
I think it's just a year later. Yeah, just a year.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't long. It's like, good Lord, man.
I think 2018
retirement.
Left. 2019 he passed away. Ron Wolf too. How long was he? A big figurehead in the Packers organization.
I mean, once again, once you get that job, you have it till you decide you don't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Who's going to remove you? But that's an honest question. Who has the power to remove anyone once they hit the?
I mean, unless they have like a Shirley Jackson short story, The Lottery kind of situation or something. I mean, how would they do it? You know what I mean? How would you even?
No, exactly. But I believe this past year, for $300, you could become an owner.
Yes.
It doesn't. You don't do anything. You don't vote on anything. You get a nice piece of paper that's a lot cheaper than a diploma. So, with that, throwing it to now, we're gonna go to the later rounds. But before I do, I just want to add this point about the New England Patriots. The Patriot way is to trade a starter, a guy that's been there for a long time, a guy that has never really been horrible, in Shaq Mason, to the Buccaneers for a low round pick, while you still have a quarterback who has 3 years left on a rookie deal for a guy named Cole Strange from UT Chattanooga. The Patriot way.
He is a good football. I know I keep saying this. He's a good football player. And once again, if a round later, I would be loving this pick. Not a round later, but like 2 rounds later, I'd be loving it. I'd be okay with it a round later. I'd be loving it 2 rounds later.
Exactly. He's a good football. N'Keal Harry was a good football player. Isaiah Wynn was a good football player.
No, N'Keal Harry was always what N'Keal Harry was, right? I think they read too much into what N'Keal Harry was.
He was a linear speed jump ball receiver. I was a N'Keal Harry fan. Right? I liked him. Jalen Strong. When will I learn my lesson about these no separation Arizona State receivers that I fall in love with? But I wouldn't have taken him as early as they did, as much as I liked it. Right? I mean, I can like a player and be aware of his limitations and flaws. Like I don't let my emotions overwhelm my senses. But and he may still find a role. I think he still will find a role in the NFL. Not as a star, but if you use him once again as sort of a glorified Hank Basket, you're going to realize, okay, we have a glorified Hank Basket. Well, if you're okay with that, then I guess you're okay.
That is a name I've
heard. But the Patriots should just learn their lesson. Let's just go free agent at wide receiver from now on. They've had one real success they've drafted in the last 13, 12, whatever year. It's a large number of years, and that's Julian Edelman, who was a quarterback in high school anyway. in college, high school and college. Anyway.
Yeah.
They do not know how. They just don't know what they're doing. Like, it's clear they just don't. It's when your friend decide to put down like 5 Mai Tais back to back to back, and they're about to head to their truck, and you say, no, give me the keys. Whenever they're about to draft a wide receiver, someone should say like, no. Like Nike should just take the laptop at that point away from, dad, away from Coach Belichick, and say like, no, I got this with dad. Like, there's certain teams just don't know what they're doing at certain things, at certain positions. That's just a factual statement at this point. It's now fact that they do not know what they're doing.
Yes. I thought it was going to be a change in philosophy, considering last year they went out. First of all, they spent money early. That was almost unheard of for them. Not only did they do that, they spent over $100 million on a slew of players, selected Mac Jones in the first. I was like, okay, maybe Brady's gone, so the philosophy changes. No, old habits die hard with the New England Patriots. So very interesting to see where they go. let's talk about our day 2, day 3 picks.
Yes.
I'm going to give both of you an opportunity. You guys only have 2 selections, right? To see who your best and favorite picks in terms of skill, availability, day 1 availability, and value. I'll start first. One is to your Pittsburgh Steelers, Bill, and that is the Marvin Leal. This was a dude that was coming in, arguably a top 5 player projected in the draft. He fell off.
At least top 20.
Yeah,
at least top, pretty much consensus top 20.
Yeah, exactly. I remember him smoking Charles Cross when A&M played.
And a lot of other really good tackles. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, look at his game against Alabama while we're talking.
Absolutely. This dude was a guy that I was convinced was going to sneak into the first. I think I had him going to Tennessee or something like that. That beside the point. He goes to an organization that he doesn't have to be the man right away, or quite frankly at all. We don't know where Stephen Tuitt is health-wise, but Cam Hayward is still a monster. TJ Watt, defensive player of the year. On the other side, I think Highsmith, is that correct? He really stepped up at the outside linebacker position.
Yeah, Highsmith had to step in when they decided, which sort of broke my heart, not to bring back Alvin Bud Dupree. But yes, Highsmith has held his own, but he's just not he's a really good athlete. But Bud Dupree was an utter freak, right? And you could see the drop off because he doesn't have the kind of explosiveness and power. But he's a good player. He'll hold his own, but I would like to still see us upgrade that position, which is why I wanted Jermaine Johnson.
Yes. And just to hurt Bill Carroll's spirit, because I'm a mean guy, you could have had both Leal and Johnson.
See, that's not what I need to hear right now, Brock, but okay, continue.
Yeah. No, I know that's not what you need to hear, considering the fact you guys signed Miles Jack and you still have Schobert. Wow, what an incredible front seven that would have been. And you have Minkah Fitzpatrick at 6. Oh, man, if I was a Steelers fan, that would hurt my heart. But we also want to take this opportunity to wish Kevin Colbert a wonderful and happy retirement.
Yes, enjoy your retirement. Don't do what Ted Thompson did. Don't die. Stay alive. But yes. I mean, wish him a happy retirement.
Wow. Yes, Mr. Colbert.
This time I got to say the wildly inappropriate thing instead of you, Brock. Yes, see how it feels?
That is a shock indeed. Yes, go down the Bobby Beathard route, not the Ted Thompson route. Rest in love to Ted Thompson, Super Bowl champion. But Marvin Leal was an absolute steal for the Steelers. He had any character concerns. I know he had like a DUI issue. Pittsburgh is the place where all those things go away. They have a great
yes.
Or at least
covered up.
Covered up, go away, whatever you need. Great organization, great foundation, great ownership. Mike Tomlin, defensive guru, phenomenal head coach, great steal. Another guy that I really love, who I thought was a second rounder, borderline first rounder, even though I knew he was going to be there in the third, is Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. How he fell to the 5th round with the Bills. My goodness. I mean, he can step into that.
Well, let me ask you something.
What's up?
In what round did Stephon Diggs get picked?
4th, I believe. Or 5th, right?
Yeah.
Out of Maryland. Yeah.
And he would have been who's he going to end up turning out to be? Stephon Diggs. Right.
No, 5th round is the spot. Yeah, 5th and 6th, because Antonio Brown as well came out of the 6th. My goodness. But which is just crazy because of perception of the SEC. Had Stephon gone to Alabama instead of Maryland, first round off with
he goes to LSU. He goes
with
Mississippi State. He could have anywhere.
Yep. Ole Miss would be even better because of
Ole Miss.
Yeah, they had he's Laquan Treadwell. He went early. AJ Brown, DK Metcalf has really elevated them. Even though Dontario Drummond did go undrafted this year, but he did sign with your Dallas Cowboys, I believe. Great pickup as well. But Khalil Shakir, I mean, I'm a hater, as you all know. I'm probably more of a hater than actual guy hater himself. Hank Buckmeyer is not a good quarterback, in my opinion. Especially when he plays any competition that is somewhat close to where Boise State is at. Khalil Shakir bailed him out of situations over and over and over again. Phenomenal route runner. I always talk about how he can contort his body in a variety of ways at a variety of angles to make any catch. So not only does he have the contortion, he also has the catch ability. He plays in Idaho, so that's cold.
And he's great in special teams as a returner as well.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
Such
he's
a good football
short,
player.
low to the ground, right? Stars all across the board. Falls to the fifth to a place like Buffalo with a guy like Josh Allen. He can step, like I said, step into that Cole Beasley role. To me, he's a number one steal.
Some team just as a defensive pick, somebody should have just done that to keep him away from them. Like, oh, well, you can't let it fall to the Bills. We'll just take him, just to keep him away from them. Like some players, you just need to take to keep him away from other teams.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking if Christian Watson made it to the Chiefs.
We didn't see a whole bunch of that this year, Bill. We did not see that.
This is a good, right? But this would have been a good year to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because you should have prevented that from happening. If I'm a couple of picks ahead of them, it's like, can we use him? Sure, but I have to make sure he doesn't make it to Buffalo. You have to try to keep Sky Moore away from the Chiefs. Like, what are you doing, people? Yes. But yeah, I agree. Those are two great selections, man.
Exactly. Especially with, just real quick to kind of go along with your point, the Jets spent a lot of picks. Not a Shakir, which it doesn't derail the work that they've done. But my goodness, is he going to be hard to stop? Miami, obviously, they spent their fortune on Tyreek Hill, so I don't really blame them. But then New England, Tyquan Thornton in the second. Like, oh, Lord. You want John Ross 2.0 or Khalil Shakir? I guess I know what they want.
Well, he's taller than John Ross, and he's better on special teams, right? John Ross wasn't a great special team. That's a weird pick, right? I mean, I'm sure that somewhere Al Davis was popping a bottle when that happened, but
oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who wasn't terribly durable in college. That's the first thing that I would think would concern you. Yes. Whose game is built entirely around speed, who doesn't help you in the return game. I don't know, whatever. I mean, once again, these are professionals. I'm sure they saw something that I didn't see.
Yes.
But when Thornton was I should say, he wasn't a mid-rounder, Bill, because he went earlier. But I mean, he should have been a mid-rounder because he's most likely a career special teams guy who you might throw out there in like wide receiver, like it's late in the game, and wide receiver, put four receivers, heck, 5 receivers out there, and just everyone go. Yeah. And
him and N'Keal Harry back to back, combo of greatness.
He is a super special athlete, but not a super special football player yet.
Yes. Out of all the defensive guys on the quote-unquote Baylor trap team, you would think they would go with one of those. No, they go offense. Maybe they're trying to find a replacement for Matthew Slater. Bill Belichick.
Wait. Was Jalen Petrie still on the board when they took Thornton?
I think he was.
Oh.
I was like,
that one.
I had to give the second look. I thought they were going to go someplace like a running back or something like that. I don't know. Anywhere.
I was thinking that if either Brisker, Daxton Hill, or Petrie made it to them, they would snap that guy up because Petrie would fit what they do so well. And you can't ask what's his name to play forever. You can't ask McCourty to play forever. He's pretty much already played forever.
34.
I mean, he's got maybe another productive year or two left, but it might be a good idea to find someone who can take over.
Yeah, the Patriots secondary in general is going to be interesting. Obviously, McCourty's like 34, 35. J.C. Jackson's now on the Chargers. Gilmore hasn't been on the team for almost a year. Well, it hasn't been a year yet, but he left midseason. He didn't even play last year anyway. Where do they go in the secondary now? I guess Jalen Mills is the guy. I'm assuming for them.
Well, he's going to have to be. I mean, I'm a little surprised they didn't spend one of their earlier picks on us. That's why I kept mocking people like Jalen Petrie to them, because I was thinking that they would think what I was thinking, that we might want to restock in this defensive backfield. But no, I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, another guy I thought they were going to go before they traded back potentially was Kaiir Elam out of Florida as well. When they traded back, I was like, okay, we'll see where they go. I was thinking interior lineman personally. I was thinking Cole Strange interior lineman because they did have to replace Shaq Mason. Patriots are just a special breed, but that's enough about them. I'm going to kick it to you, Greg. Who are your two favorite day 2, day 3 guys?
Day 2, for me, I'm going to say I really liked what I'm getting. I really liked what the Bills did in this draft, and I like their day 2 pick. I like almost every pick that the Bills had, but I think the Bills did very well. They did well in that first as well, getting Elam after you thought he might be a Patriot. Kyrie Elam for them is that's a fit, right? And then the day 3 guys, and it's a late day 3. Bo Melton.
Oh, great.
How did Bo Melton go that late? There it is, Bill. There it is, Bill. He's this year's Stephon Diggs because of the school that he went to.
Well, but here's the thing.
Those mid-level ACC gems.
But here's yeah.
Sorry, Big Ten gems. Sorry.
Right, but here's the thing. If you look at him, I mean, he's not quite as tall and not quite as fast as Tyquan Thornton, but you could have gotten a guy that's a better football player than Tyquan Thornton, almost as fast. Obviously, a little thicker, stockier. I mean, everyone's comparing every sort of thicker-bodied receiver nowadays to Debo. He's not that. No. But he's a really, really, and once again, terrific in the special teams area. Another guy's going to be a terrific probably could be Pro Bowl level special team guy, but is a really good route runner, good after the catch. I'll never understand how this guy goes where he goes. And Tyquan Thornton,
7th round versus 2nd round. This is
right. And you could have had Tyquan Thornton, you could have had a Bo Melton who's a better football player. And you could have gotten him later, and you could have whatever.
And Bo Melton also fills in the coachable category.
Right. I mean,
like everybody loved that kid.
Right. And as much as Bill Belichick loves tight ends, he could have grabbed Jelani Woods, or maybe even was McBride still on the board when they picked in the second?
McBride. I thought McBride went mid-second. I could be wrong.
McBride might have been gone. Yeah. So probably McBride
had him before.
Yeah, I was surprised that if they went wide receiver, they didn't go with a guy. The Patriots didn't go with a guy like Kyle Phillips, who Bill Carroll so eloquently said fits the quote-unquote Hunter Renfrow mode.
Nope. McBride went 5 picks after.
He went 5 picks after?
5 picks after they took Tyquan.
After, yeah.
McBride went 5 picks. Come on, really? This once again, like your friend who decided to knock back those 5 Mai Tais. No, give me your keys. Like, this is, I can't let you do this. I cannot let you do this. I mean, Sky Moore goes after Thornton. Alec Pierce, if you prefer taller receivers. George Pickens went after Thornton. It's just depressing. I should stop. But I'm sorry, Patriots fans. I'm just sorry. I'm apologizing.
Yeah, it when it comes to the draft, you're never going to make sense of what they do. And then the other team, I don't care. Everybody can criticize them year in and year out. They never pick in the 1 or the 2. It's the Rams. Yet the roster with the most guys that are percentage-wise that were drafted by their team is the Rams.
They do a great job in the later rounds, and they're more than willing to sacrifice the early rounds because they know they're good in the late round. That's how they're able to do that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And look at the guys that they have acquired by trading away their first round picks. Obviously, Stafford got first, but then Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, and such. So it's not like they're just wasting these first. No. There's no such thing that guarantees a first round pick, as we all know.
Doing a good job.
Yeah.
Let me give you a couple of guys and my guys are just a few picks apart from each other, 3 picks apart. At 73, Jelani Woods goes to the Colts, where, I mean, what's their situation, right? Admittedly, he's not, Kyle Pitts, because, who is? But Jelani Woods is a special athlete and enormous target, right? And he can block. I mean, he can also block, but he's a special talent. And if they coach him up even a little bit, they should be able to get a lot out of him, right? He's in an offense and in a situation where tight ends see the ball. And they've been getting it to people like Mo Alley Cox. No offense to Mo Alley Cox, but this is a more talented person, right? They've been throwing it to Jack Doyle. No offense to Jack Doyle, but this is a more talented human being than Jack Doyle. I could see him pretty quickly pushing his way to the top of the tight end depth chart. And if he does, boy, howdy. Once again, dynasty draft enthusiast, this might be, no offense to Trey McBride, but this might actually be the dynasty tight end 1 because of his situation and his rare blend of physical gifts. And then just, literally 3 picks later, the Ravens getting Travis Jones, who The other player I badly wanted in Pittsburgh, I kept putting like scenarios in my mind where we somehow got both Travis Jones, who I thought we could have gotten, with our pick that we got a pick we took, right? Like, so we get Jermaine Johnson in our first pick, and then I was only worried about maybe people taking him earlier than that, like 9 or 14 or something, but when he was still there, whatever. I'm over it. But I just kept thinking if we could get those two guys and back, that's our first rounder, second rounder. It's like, yes, way to go out on top, Kevin Colbert. But whatever. But getting back to Travis Jones, if it weren't for the existence of Jordan Davis, we would be talking a lot more about Travis Jones and what an amazing tackle prospect he is. Productive, he has great endurance, he's got good technique, he's got a tremendous frame, he's not done. I mean, he's big, but he can get bigger. He's an incredibly trim and fit 324 pounds. If you saw him at the Senior Bowl, you're like, that guy's 324. Where is it? If you'd said 299, I would have believed you, right? But he's 324, and he looks like he's almost 300 pounds. He is put together beautifully. I saw him throw a spin move at somebody that was, you would expect it like from an outside rusher, and it's like, wow, this guy is nimble and he's got moves, and we let him go to the Ravens.
Yes, and instead of a Steeler, he's a Raven.
Why?
Yeah, the Ravens with their first 4 picks, 2 in the first, 2 in the second, got potentially 4 first round. Got guys we all thought were gonna go in the first round. Obviously, Ojabo fell off.
I thought early second for Travis Jones, but I thought, but he, once again, when he made it to us in the second, I was like, okay, a chance for us to make up for botching the Jermaine Johnson pick. Oh, why? But yeah, but I do like George Pickens. So that took a little bit of sting out. But I would have preferred. There are more people who can in this draft that I think can do what George Pickens does. There are people who can do what Travis Jones does. So I would have gone Jones over Pickens just because there's a few more George Pickens type players in this draft. Once you get past Travis Jones, I don't know if there's any more of those left. I mean, Eric Johnson, sort of, kind of, he's a much more raw. He doesn't have all the moves and all the technique that we find in and he's a little smaller too. I mean, he's not smaller, but lighter. I should say.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a lot of big body, bull rushing guys. That's about it. And if it makes you feel any better, Bill, which I know it won't, if you guys took Jermaine Johnson, then Pickens, then Leal, you guys still have a first round pick in 2023, so you could have gotten a quarterback there,
Yes.
And
that was my thinking. I thought we would wait until next year on it. We have Mitchell Trubisky. I thought the point of getting Mitchell Trubisky was how we could make sure we could wait until.
They share a building and they got inside baseball on Pickett. Shouldn't that make you feel better?
What I will say is they know him extremely well. They're very comfortable with him. He's probably already been looking at their playbook while he was still in college, familiarizing himself. I'm sure they gave him some sort of promise ring or whatever, but it's a defensive draft, and we're a defensive team. Draft defense. Oh, well. It's fine. It's fine. In 500 years, nobody will care. What's the next question?
Just real quick for Moana, Bill's going through the 5 stages of grief, and we support him on his journey. Next one is going to be just one, but let's just say our favorite undrafted free agent in terms of the person selected and where they went. I will start on a guy I'm very high on because of where he went, what he's done, and then obviously where he's playing at now. And that is Mario Goodrich, DB out of Clemson, signed with the Philadelphia Eagles to just go back to the incredible draft that they had. They already have a pretty decent DB room. I believe that's capped off by Anthony Harris, who though is safety, I believe. This is going to be a guy that's going to be able to develop, a guy that when he does step on the field is going to be able to not have to be the man, essentially, because of the great pass rush that they already have. I think he's going to be very versatile. And quite frankly, I think he's a guy that can transition into that hybrid linebacker role wherever they need. For being an undrafted free agent, I thought he was going to get selected. He shouldn't have fallen, and thus he's my favorite. I'm going to kick it back to our favorite Steeler in the room, Bill Carroll. Who's your favorite undrafted free agent?
Oh, there's a lot of really. I mean, as we've talked about before, Greg. My God, The Ravens killed it in undrafted free agency too. God, I hate them. So many good players in undrafted free agency. I mean, they are. I'm not going to pick one of these guys as my favorite, but these are just players who I think will make an impact. If not for them, for somebody. Zacoby McClain, probably a great special teamer, and also maybe a special package linebacker guy from Auburn, really good football player. Jeremiah Moon, who I'm a little surprised when I drafted from Florida. Emeka Omezi from NC State. Once again, ask Booth about him, right? Speaking of guys that gave people trouble, they got Ricky Person, the other, not Bam McKnight, but the faster of the two running backs from NC State. Slade Bolden, and then here's my guy, Shamar Bridges, right? Listen, watch out for this name from Fort Valley State. Big-bodied, tough receiver, utterly fearless too. But the guy I'm going to go with is Jalen Weidemeyer. Obviously, a guy that was coming into the season was my tight end one, right? Later, McBride and even Woods kind of bypassed him, but I never completely left him for dead. I kept him in my top 5 rankings, even though, obviously he had maybe the worst tight end testing of recent memory, at least amongst guys that were supposed to be good. I'm at sort of a loss to explain why he looked so terrible in his physical testing, because you watch him and he's not a blazer, he's not blowing. If someone said he ran 4.87, I'd be like, yeah, sure, right, I believe that. Even 4.92, I'd be like, okay, that's a little slower than I expected, but okay, right. 503.
We got over 5.
503? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm 54, but I'm sure at 44 I could beat 503. I might still be able to beat it. I don't know. I haven't read a 40 in a very long time, but at 44 I could definitely beat 503. So that worries me a bit. That I don't know. I mean, it's a head scratcher, but I still think he's in a good situation with a team that doesn't need him to be great right out of the box, obviously. And I mean, he's still got talent in there. Like, the talent isn't gone. I'm just super confused. I mean, I'm not like, I have a pretty good scout's eye. Like, I rarely am that far wrong about a guy's speed. And I thought he would at least be, I didn't think he was a blazer. I don't think he was a 4.5, 4.6, even a low 4.7 guy, but I thought he was a upper 4.7 to low 4. Like I said, even if he ran 4.87, I would. But I thought he was like in that 4.76 to 4.82 range. And to see, I don't know. I'll give you one other one. I'll give you one other one. And this is another name to remember. This is a guy who's going to make, if not this team, somebody's team would be better than people realize. Carson Wells from Colorado. Now, Colorado was not a good team this past season, but Carson Wells was a very good football player. And if this is one of those rare things where it actually would have been better for him to be black. If he was Carson Wells or Carson Wells, I promise you he gets drafted. This guy's he's a terrific athlete and a really good football player. How he went undrafted, it's a mystery to me, because everyone's looking for pass rush. The guy knows how to rush the passer. And even though he's a linebacker, and of course that selectively permeable membrane between pass rusher and linebacker is more selectively permeable than ever, but you can just throw him out there in special package situations. He's still going to get you 4.5, 5 sacks, even as a part-time player. Astonishing value for the Bengals as an undrafted free agent. Well done. Those are my guys. I could do 50 of them, probably not 50, but 25 easily, but I'll stop there. Oh my God, I forgot about Isaiah Weston. Okay, sorry, guys.
No, just say that real quick before we move on to Greg. You okay, Bill?
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I just realized I left out Isaiah Weston, who was like, what?
That's what you've been talking about forever.
Greg's term is pet cat. Isaiah Weston, I can't believe I forgot about him. He's one of my pet cats. But yeah, go ahead.
Greg, I'll kick it to you. Who's your favorite undrafted free agent?
For me, I'm going to go to tight end. Lucas Krull went to New Orleans. How this kid was not drafted is beyond me. It is just beyond me. And everybody got to see what he did because Kenny Pickett was throwing him the football.
Yep.
you could see what he could do as a run blocker.
Yep. Big, fast, good hands. I don't know what people don't like. New England. I can't believe New England didn't. They're constantly collecting tight ends. How did New England not grab it?
I don't know what to say.
If he ends up with the Packers, he's pushing. And once again, no offense to Robert Tonyan, but he's pushing Robert Tonyan for his job.
Tonyan, absolutely, and there's other teams' tight ends that he'd be pushing for a job. And character and all that sort of stuff.
All of it.
He nails it to a T.
He checks every box, is what I'm hearing, right, Greg?
Yeah.
He's an older prospect. He spent a couple years playing baseball and whatever.
Baseball.
But there's a lot of older prospects in this class. That's the only real knock is his age.
Yeah. Which, quite frankly, isn't that bad of a knock when you get into the lower rounds anyway, especially considering a position like tight end, a position where it's a physical position anyway. You want a guy that's already reached his peak. But get a guy in his prime on a rookie deal. Sorry, Greg, what were you saying?
He has less wear and tear on him from having played baseball instead of football.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. He got some good knees, good hips, all that stuff that wears away from the physical nature of playing the tight end position. Another guy I want to bring up, I was just surprised he went undrafted, Smoke Monday, safety. He just joins the list of safeties that went undrafted. That just boggles me. Obviously, as a disclaimer, we all know that the undrafted free agent class and the draft class in general this year has been skewed because of the added COVID year given by the NCAA. So don't expect this to be a normal thing headed into the future. But my goodness, we went over a lot of things. Before we finish up and wrap up, I just want to talk about since 2012, where the Patriots drafted potential Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers, Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower in the first. They had no pick in 2013. 2014, Dominic Easley, a.k.a. Who. 2015, they had Malcolm Brown, another Who. No picks in 2016 and 2017, I believe. A couple of those was violations picks, so they got those taken away. Isaiah Wynn in 2018, Sonny Michel, who was a phenomenal running back in his rookie year when they went on to win the Super Bowl, hasn't recovered since. However, has won his second Super Bowl with the Rams, N'Keal Harry, and of course, Mac Jones in 2021, and then Cole Strange in 2022. Very interesting picks indeed by the Patriots. Before we wrap up, I would like to hear a second round pick or a third round pick, a day two guy, right? Because there's a lot of value there that you hate because of either you don't like the player or you don't like the position that they were picked. I'll kick it to you, Greg, to finish us off. Who are you taking? Hello, Greg?
Yep, sorry about that. I didn't quite hear you, Brock.
Oh, gotcha. Just give us a day two pick that you hate because of the either the player that was selected or the position that they were selected in. I'll go first for an example. John Mechie for me to the Texans. I did not feel that out of all the receivers available, he was worth giving up as high of a pick in the second round that the Texans gave for him. I like him in general, but he is coming off an ACL injury. I believe ACL or knee or something like that. He sustained.
Yeah, it's an ACL.
Yeah, in the SEC championship game. For what the Texans need in terms of they need everything, I thought there's a lot of different ways it could have gone. I thought Mechie was a reach. I thought they could have got him later, personally, especially all the picks that they have. And thus, he is the pick that I hate because not the player, just the position that he was taken at. I'm going to get back to you, Greg. Who do you take?
Where the Texans took Mechie?
Yeah. What pick do you hate out of the day two in terms of either the player selected for the team or the pick that was made for the player in terms of value?
Okay, so the day two pick, I really, and it's nothing against Trey McBride, but it's the Cardinals taking McBride.
That's pretty fair. We already went over that, especially considering the fact that the Cardinals.
It's just the one that just jumps right in.
Yeah, especially considering I believe that was the first pick of the draft, considering they traded the first for Hollywood Brown. They just re-signed Ertz, so I believe a 3-year deal. I'm not
Yep.
sure how he really fits into Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense personally. I don't remember them using a lot of 2 tight end sets. So it's very, very
I don't
interesting.
know. I don't know how Hollywood Brown is going to fit in on an offense that is horizontal rather than vertical, because he's crying that he wants to be a vertical threat, right?
Yeah, though that's what I'm thinking too. Either Kingsbury's gonna change it up in order to, because Murray wants to throw it deep, or just have him run deep to stretch the field to get more open underneath. I'm not sure. All I know is you'd have to put a gun to my head to trade a first round pick for Hollywood Brown. His hands are probably the worst in the league, I would have to say. I mean, I think that he is what we all feared Jamar Chase is going to be coming out of preseason, is the best way to put it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's nothing else I can say to that. I'm going to kick it to you, Bill, for the final question of the night. Who is your day 2 pick that you hate the most?
So remember we talked about Bo Melton, right? Bo Melton, if Bo Melton played in the SEC and was like 2.5 years older and not quite as refined as a route runner, he would be Bellis Jones.
Yep.
So he's a good athlete. He's a very good athlete, and he deserves to be drafted at some point. However, where he was drafted is my real issue. In this we keep talking about how super deep this class is. With the 71st selection and some of the wide receiver talent that's still on the board at that point, and receiver talent would have still been on the board rounds later. And we just talked about some of the players that went just after. Abraham Lucas went the next pick after him. Jelani Woods went the pick after that. Maybe they think they're set at tight end. I get it. They drafted a tight end not long ago, and they kind of sort of like him.
They still have 7 under contract. They're loaded there.
They've been loaded at tight end for the past 3 years.
Right. They clearly right. And I can see why they think they don't really need him. I can see why they don't need him, but they could have used Christian Harris. They definitely could have used Travis Jones because Keen Hicks, right? Not walking that door much longer. So Bernard Ryman, you think they could have used Ryman? You think they could have used him? I think they could have.
I think they could have.
D'Angelo Malone. This team for this defense to work, they need pass rush, and they need pass rush. D'Angelo Malone is, to me, the second most polished pass rusher in this whole draft class after Jermaine Johnson II. Jacoby Dean had fallen to a place where they could have gotten him, and they passed on him. Marcus Jones was available. Cameron Thomas, speaking of really productive and efficient and productive pass rushers, Cameron Thomas. The aforementioned DeMarvin Leal was available at that point. Jalen Tolbert was available at the point that they picked. So there's a lot of good football players still on the board. And I'm convinced that Bellis Jones Jr. would have been there around later.
Absolutely.
So so I'm a little, and if he wasn't, there's other options that would have given you probably the same thing you can get from him. And as mentioned before, he will be 25 years old very, very soon. So it's.
I believe he started his career at Nebraska. Is that correct? Bellis Jones. I know he transferred to Tennessee. I forget where he started.
Yeah, he did transfer. I can't remember where he started his career. Was it USC? It was.
Oh, that's right. It was USC.
Yeah, he was Trojan.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different guy. But Tennessee wide receivers in general, felt quite since like 2000. I guess 2010, that's where I remember personally, have been real off and on hits. Obviously, as a Chargers fan, Josh Palmer has been a 3rd-round hit for the Bolts. He looks to be an incredible athlete with great hands, but he's kind of the exception to the rule. Cordell Patterson is another guy that has found himself now in that utility wideback role, but he was not worth his first overall pick to the Vikings. Justin Hunter going 34th overall, that didn't really work out. Quite frankly, there hasn't been a Tennessee guy I can remember in a while at the receiver position that has come onto the league and dominated. The only offensive guy, honestly.
Yeah. At one point, Tennessee was unquestionally wide receiver U, right? Yeah. Anthony Morgan, Willie, I mean, a long list.
At one point in time,
Marcus Nash. Yeah, I mean, you just grind them at this, boom, 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 tight end. I mean, wide receivers just come out of them and everybody's business, and that's dropped off a bit, obviously. But I mean, there are things to like about Bellis Jones. I'm not saying he's not going to produce, particularly in the special. He's a very special teams, another special teams player, but this feels like a fifth rounder to me, maybe fourth.
Yeah.
Especially with the age factor. And here's a stat in case you were just wanting some random stats. So in the history of the NFL, there have been 57 receivers who were day one starters for 10 years or more. And obviously, a lot of those guys are Hall of Famers, like Jerry Rice, but 57. So for him to give you 10 years, that means he's 35 years old. Obviously, he's not going to be a decade player. I mean, like it looks highly unlikely. You're talking about a one contract player, most likely. There's two contract players still available on the board at 73. That's what I'm driving at.
No, you made an excellent point. 25 right now. By the time his rookie deal expires, he'll already be 29. You're not going to get the 4-year deal out of him. At most, would be a 3-year, probably a 2-year, if we're being honest. And it's weird because the Bears, I don't know how you guys feel. I like their draft, especially their first 2 picks. I thought they picked up Kyler Gordon out of Washington, Brisker out of Penn State. You pair them up with guys like Jalen Johnson and obviously Eddie Jackson. I thought they nailed it. And then you pick up a guy like this to join a wide receiver room. That's very weird, to say the least. Obviously, Jones and then Brian Pringle they picked up. Darrell Mooney is still there. But you don't really have the guy at this point for Justin Fields, in my opinion. You could have picked up a guy like Raymond.
And Jones isn't going to be the guy either. He's a wide receiver 3. So they still need, I mean, if Mooney's your wide receiver 1, and he shouldn't be, yeah, they're gonna make it tough on Justin Fields. You have a wide receiver 1 who should be a wide receiver 2. You have a wide receiver probably 2 or 3. I mean, yeah, they still need to bolster that wide receiver room. I don't know if they're planning to make it. I don't know. I guess they're planning to be more active in free agency next year because they're gonna have all that money to play with.
But receiver is the position you play money with because that's that has the most availability. If you, like you said, if you get a guy like Raymond and Jenkins at the tackle positions are monsters, literal monsters of the midway. To me, that's a perfect fit. That brings up a last question. I know we've been going on for a while, but I want to bring up one final question when it comes to the Chippewas in Central Michigan. Were you guys surprised to see I'm going to pronounce his name, Godecki, go before Raymond? I will kick it to you, Greg, to start.
So I didn't catch the end of that, Brock.
He's asking about, were you surprised to see, of the 2 Central Michigan offensive linemen, were you surprised in the order in which they left the board?
Yeah, Godecki over.
Okay, the order that they left, yeah. A little bit. But again, Ryman, because of the age factor for a lot of teams, is automatically eliminated. A lot of other teams probably would have just felt that they don't have the time to develop him either. Because he still needs development, right?
Yes.
So again, like you were talking about the one contract guy, Ryman might get you a second contract, but
we lost him again.
I think what he's probably pointing out is Ryman is a guy that, because of his age, the peak of his career is coming maybe 2 or 3 years after you signed him. And he starts a little bit of the downward slide only 3 or 4 years into his contract, physically a little bit. I'm assuming that's something like, well, Greg, you can restate what you were saying, and we missed the last part of your statement.
Yeah, I was just saying this for a guy that may not make it to a second contract. Right.
Fair points. I just want to point this out when it comes to left tackle position. Of course, we never know because NFL and athletes individually, they all have different careers. I wonder, obviously, we saw Andrew Whitworth win a Super Bowl. He was 40 years old. The best tackle in the NFL right now is Trent Williams, who's now, I think, 32, sorry. But when his contract expires, he'll be 36 because he got a 6-year, $130 million deal. I wonder if teams are looking at tackles and not factoring their age as much anymore because there's been a precedent that the good ones last for a while and that there's methods to keep them healthy. Just something that for all of us to think about in the future when it comes to that position.
Well, the elite ones, yes.
Yes.
But the elite ones are elite. I mean, like, they're the exception. They're not the rule.
Yes.
And we talked earlier about Tyron Smith, who at one point was looked at as elite, but he's not played a whole season. Is it we're coming up on 7 years now, right, Greg? Is that in my
7.
math right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you worry when you get a player who's both old and raw.
Of course.
Like, people aren't wild about either one of those things, but normally you associate raw with younger players. When you get a player that's old and raw, that can definitely make teams say, maybe we're not taking this guy at the end of the first round, which a lot of people tried mocking him into the end of the first, sort of ignoring his age. But I'm telling you, NFL teams pay attention to those things. And I tried to tell people that.
No, you guys have made excellent points. I think him ending up on the Colts, a run first team, is the perfect fit for him to develop as a full, well-rounded left tackle. Look forward to seeing him and all the rest of the draft picks we discussed and the draft picks in general start their careers in the NFL. We wish them all the best. That wraps up our show. Greg, before we head out, I want to say thank you for coming on the show. Do you want to say anything to anybody watching before we leave? As we take the normal pause. Greg, did you hear me?
I didn't quite pick that one up. Sorry, Brock. It just keeps stopping and then it comes back on just as you finish. And I'm like, oh, great.
No, not a problem. Do you want to say anything to anybody who's watching before we head out?
No, I'm going to be nice this year. I've decided to be nice. I'll leave my viciousness out of it, even towards the Commanders. What a name! Ah!
I would like to be on record saying that if they did change names, I wanted Red Tails, but that is neither here.
Yeah, but that's because of a intellectual property issue. They would have had to buy out the rights to the name, and they don't want to.
I still.
Oh, we lost him again. Oh, we gotta get you a new computer, right? Or probably just use a different software. But
it's I think it's mostly where he lives. I think.
Of course, where he lives. That probably does it.
Calgary is great at many things, but apparently Wi-Fi isn't one of them.
Bill, and all the times we've been on, I've never had this before. Never. I'm like, what's? But of course, I do have an alert. I do have an alert from my carrier that there are issues, and it's like great.
Oh.
So, but anyhow.
The one day we fill. And yes, they would have had to buy it. And as you all know, Dan Schneider can't afford a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. So we'll talk about his failures later. I'll kick it to you, Bill. Any last words before we head out?
Yeah, well, my last words is for some of those players like Deshaun Dixon and Jason Poe and Lucas Krull and some others that I've gotten a chance to know throughout this pre-draft process who ended up as undrafted free agents. There's several undrafted free agents who are sitting in places like the Hall of Fame. I mean, ask Kurt Warner, right? Ask Donnie Shell. Night Train Lane was a tryout guy, right? He didn't have a contract. He took a day off from work from his job in the fabrication plant was it Boeing? No, Republic. Was one of the aircraft makers. Takes a day off from work from the assembly line at the aircraft plant. Shows up, and he's a starter for the Rams a few months later. So your opportunities are not defined. I mean, by where or if you were drafted. And there's a lot of terrific football players. I mean, Rod Smith is a borderline Hall of Famer, undrafted free agent, and Adam Thielen is a guy that might have a shot to be sort of a borderline Hall of Famer, undrafted, a tryout guy, right? Not even, once again, didn't have a contract coming in. He's another guy that just showed up. Only thing he was guaranteed of getting was, a chance to work out and probably sweats or whatever they let you keep, gym bag, I don't know, whatever they let you keep when you show up as a tryout guy. So your opportunities are not defined by where or if you were drafted, but by what you do when you finally get a chance to show what you can do. And your chances are more compressed than a guy who was an early round draft pick. You've got to catch someone's eye and do it quickly, but these are guys that are more talented. I mean, Marquise Bell is a tremendous football player. There's a lot of really terrific football players who were undrafted free agents in this draft class, and I expect them to make some people wonder how they went undrafted and make some team very, very happy that they got them when they got them, even though they got them, like I said, as a what I call an eighth rounder. I will be putting out a whole series of videos about this draft class on Z62 Sports Media, and an article will be coming out about what I call my eighth rounders, my blue light specials. the guys that teams got a real bargain on, that'll be on Nuts and Bolts Sports.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Bill Carroll. I want to jump off of that real quick. The guy that I loved watching, his highlights, because I didn't get to see him play live, was the leader of the Regulators, John Randall, right? Guy came out of Texas A&M Kingsville, a college that, if we want to go back through the history, was created in order to segregate white and black students from Texas A&M. He is one of the greatest undrafted football legends. So I just want to share that sentiment. I wish all the undrafted free agents the best of luck. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The NFL, yes, a lot of great phenomenal. So was that Greg?
Palomalu's forever.
Yeah, Palomalu's, right?
The whole family. They're all there.
WWE. Yes,
and somebody interview Eugene Chung for a coaching position. Worst case scenario, he deserves to be up for a coordinator position.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and there are so many, and the reason why I love football so much, not only just because I love the game in general, but because there's so many opportunities for so many different people, different backgrounds, sizes, abilities on the football field. I'd like to say just shout out to all the great pioneers, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who have played the NFL, won championships, so on and so forth. I hope to see more minority coaches in the NFL, especially at coordinator and head coaching positions. Of course, everything takes one step at a time, but the first step to the road to success is just getting out of the car. That's something that I've learned a lot, is that's the greatest fear, is just getting out of the car and doing this. So with that being said, once again, I'd like to thank you, Greg. I'd like to thank you, Bill. I'd like to shout out everyone that is currently going on their journey. And thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.